Hello, a very good morning. It's just after 6 o'clock on Saturday, December the 21st. Can you tell we are feeling a little bit Christmassy? You should see what everyone is wearing in the control room this morning. Anyway, welcome along. Thanks ever so much for joining me this morning. Well, great news, as you would expect. It's Don't Make Your Bed Day today. That's right. The day was actually originally requested by a fifth grader in New Jersey. So she was very enterprising, actually. She wrote to Congress requesting a day off from making her bed. This holiday encourages you to turn your back on those repetitive tasks and feel, well, a bit rebellious. Wow, that's tangential. It's the winter solstice today. It's an astronomical phenomenon that sees the Northern Hemisphere have its longest night and shortest day of the year. Thank goodness for that. And if you didn't know already, there are just 4 sleeps to go until Christmas. That means there are 3 shopping days for those who need to panic.
Are you on the good list or the naughty list?
Very naughty. Very, very naughty. Right, let's start today's show, shall we?
Today's fascinating facts.
So today's fascinating facts, on this very day in 1804 was the birth of Benjamin Disraeli, the first Earl of Beaconsfield, the British Prime Minister. He was Prime Minister in 1868. He was then defeated at the next election. He was Prime Minister again in 1874, but this time he actually increased his majority. Well done him. Also, on this day in 1846, Robert Liston, Scottish surgeon, used anaesthetic or ether for the first time in a British operation. That was done at University College in London. He amputated a leg. He was actually known as the fastest knife in the West End, and the reason for that was, of course, time was very precious, because the quicker you did it, the fewer complications you got in terms of pain and survival chances. That was in 1846, and a very sad note. On this day in 1988, I remember this so vividly, a Pan-American jumbo jet bound from New York was blown out of the sky by a terrorist bomb and crashed onto the Scottish town of Lockerbie. It killed 259 passengers, 11 people on the ground. It does actually remain the deadliest aviation incident ever to take place in the United Kingdom. And those are today's fascinating facts.
Weekend breakfast, we're the top of the game. The David Paul team, we're reaching for the sky.
And Tom, the producer, is throwing some shapes to our jingle there. Good morning, good morning. 5 minutes past 6, Saturday, December the 21st. That means Christmas Day just around the corner. So I was thinking, which little elf would be excellent to be here in the studio? And the answer to that, of course, Duncan Box, broadcaster. Good morning.
Morning.
That is a very splendid hat.
Yeah, I got quite a blunt email yesterday from your producer.
She's scary, Gabriella.
Terrifies me.
Terrifying.
And
she's Italian.
Well, quite. And she threatened to unleash forces of hell unless I wore something festive. And I had to point out,
yes,
I don't actually possess anything festive, because... Do you have any Christmas jumpers?
I have a lot of waistcoats.
Yeah, the waistcoats are different.
I have one, but not really. I'm not really keen on jumpers.
No, I think unless you're 7, they don't really work. So I wrote back and said, I've got nothing Christmassy to wear.
Right.
But obviously, to get into the festive spirit, I've got the hat.
I think you need to have the affect as well. I think you need to embody that.
What do you mean?
Well, I think... Yes, that sort of thing, that sort of thing.
I can't do that for 2 hours.
I thought we should start by talking about the winter solstice, because in many ways, really good news, because it means that actually from now, the days are going to start getting longer.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. But it starts with a few seconds every single day, and then you get more and more. It will steadily grow until daylight expands by 3 minutes. 3 minutes every day.
Yeah.
That starts in March, according to the weather forecasters. It's also known as Yule. It's the celebration of light and the symbolic rebirth of the sun. And this is to do with the tilt of the Earth. But you were telling me earlier, it's also a reason to leap with wild abandon.
I'm not an expert, but my understanding of this is basically at the moment there'll be a load of hippies who are down at Stonehenge in Wiltshire wearing kind of like, I don't know, sackcloth and stuff, and, you know, imbibing flagons of wine, which sounds like a remarkably good idea at 6 minutes past 6.
Sounds like a brilliant idea.
We should go.
Right. Well, we should go. English Heritage, actually, it's one of the key occasions where English Heritage actually allows people near the stones.
Yeah.
So, again, celebration, the rebirth. I quite like all that.
Yeah, I like that. Hug a stone.
Hug a stone. Yeah. Absolutely right. So there we are. That is the winter solstice that we're talking about. Shall we move on and talk about the big stories this morning? If you are just waking up this morning. I just want to give you the latest. At least 2 people, and this is a terrible story actually, at least 2 people, including a child, have been killed after a car drove into crowds at a Christmas market in the German city of Magdeburg. 68 people have now been injured, 15 of them seriously. The extraordinary thing about this story is that the suspect is believed to be a 50-year-old Saudi Arabian doctor. This is according to the Saxony Prime Minister Rainer Haseloff. A chaotic situation. Ursula von der Leyen, all the those from representing the European Union expressing their shock and horror, and Ursula von der Leyen has condemned the brutal and cowardly act in Magdeburg. You know, this isn't the first time this has happened, is it? At a Christmas market. This is... I mean, it's particularly vile and goes against everything to do with human nature. This is a time of celebration.
It is, and as you rightly point out, it's not the first time we've seen this. There's a piece in the Daily Mail today talking about how festive fairs have been targeted in terror attacks for more than 10 years, predominantly in Germany, but also in France. Usual caveats apply to this current situation in the last 24 hours. We don't know the motives of this guy yet. There's a lot of speculation on social media. What we do know is terror attacks in the past have been carried out by people who, for whatever reason, don't like the Western way of life, or they're obsessed by some kind of ideology or some kind of extreme version of religion. And as you rightly point out, it's awful because the people who are being killed here or seriously injured, they're innocent people. We're hearing reports from overnight that, you know, children have been injured, possibly a child killed as well. They go out, they're doing their stuff around Christmas, and it's the most vilest of acts.
It really is. The latest on this, a memorial service will be held in Magdeburg's cathedral at 1900 local time. This is today, according to the city mayor. The US now says this has just broken. The US says it's horrified by the attack in Magdeburg. That's the State Department. We send our condolences to those affected and stand by our friend and ally, Germany. Now, in terms of the suspect, and it is difficult because we can't actually... We don't know a great deal, but the suspect is believed... And you mentioned there, someone who hates the West or our way of life. It's believed to be a Saudi doctor, permanently resident in Germany. So that is not stereotypically the kind of person one would expect.
No. The interesting piece in the Mail looks back at previous attacks, and they highlight one that took place in 2016 in Berlin, and it turned out that the attacker was a failed Tunisian asylum seeker, Anis Amri, who was killed 4 days later by police during a shootout in Milan in Italy. He had arrived in Germany a year and a half earlier, 24 years old. He'd used 14 different identities during his time in the country and had been on a list of potentially violent Islamic extremists. Now, that's something that happened in 2016. Yes. I only mention that because it gives some background to previous attacks and the kind of person who's carried it out. I think the big question that remains this morning, and I think as time goes on over the next few hours, we'll find out more and more about this, what's believed to be a doctor who's resident in Germany, but comes from Saudi Arabia, about what his motives might be. And there's a lot of speculation, as you would expect, on social media this morning, none of which can actually be nailed down.
Absolutely right. And of course, he came to Germany in 2006. As I say, a 50-year-old doctor originally from Saudi Arabia. He was not known, according to the news reports coming out of Germany, as an Islamist extremist. That's interesting, and as you say, there's a sort of huge kind of outpouring on social media, and of course we can't corroborate any of that. And you do have to be very careful when you read that, don't you?
You do, and it's understandable because people are scared. I mean, I bring it back to the shores of this country. We have Christmas fairs and markets in the United Kingdom, and a couple of weeks ago there were pictures all over the newspapers. I think one of the key markets was in Manchester, where you've got armed police walking around because it is sadly deemed a possible terrorist target at this time of year.
It's really sad. I just want to mention what Saudi has said. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has expressed solidarity with the German people and the families of the victims following that incident yesterday. Let's move on and talk. I was going to say let's talk about something a little more positive, but I don't think it is. It's Keir Starmer. I mean, this man, I mean, really, well, we'll talk about, actually, his take on the world and whether he has any insight at all into what he is doing. But Keir Starmer has handed peerages to his former Chief of Staff, Sue Gray.
Yes.
I mean, this is extraordinary. A dozen union bosses, former Labour MPs. Now, his reasoning for this is to, essentially, to change the mathematics in the upper house. So, to become more on parity with the Conservative Party. But he's rewarded the former head of the trades union Union Congress, the union leader who led the teachers' strike last year. People around the country will be thinking, why do they deserve an
people
award?
who fund his political party, essentially.
Well said. Yes.
I mean, I don't want to be too blunt about it, but that's the case, isn't it? The unions pretty much underwrite the Labour Party.
They do.
Listen, I'm sick of this, and I think a lot of people listening and watching talk are sick of this. You know, the House of Lords is another example of a Keir Starmer U-turn. A couple of years ago, he was saying, let's scrap the House of Lords.
All of a sudden, isn't it? How he's changed his mind.
Who would have thought it? All of a sudden, he's in government and he sticks a load of his mates in the upper chamber. And what do we know about the House of Lords? We know that you get 361 quid a day in expenses if you turn up, which is nice work if you can get it.
Well, we were saying that this morning. You turn up, you sign in.
Yeah.
You're there for 5 minutes, have a lovely lunch. You were also telling me about the subsidised canteen.
Yeah, so I did the stint in Parliament. I ran an MP's office for a year as a senior parliamentary assistant, and I was fascinated to learn one of the Lords restaurants, bearing in mind a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars in the Palace of Westminster, but one of the Lords restaurants. And so this is going back 3 years. 3 years. Ribeye steak with thick cut hand chips, hand-cut thick chips.
Yes.
I think they might have been triple cooked. £5.85, £6.50.
And there is the dichotomy, isn't it? You've got a cost of living crisis going on outside, and then you've got the Lords having an absolute joyous time for 300 quid a day just for signing in. Just in terms of that arithmetic, it was 185 Labour peers, 271 Conservatives. At the end of all of this, it will be 211 Labour, 232. Look, I have changed my mind on this because I think the House of Lords is anachronistic. I think it has to change. We need a revising chamber. There is no doubt about that. But this isn't the right thing. What, your mate who helps you along and gets you elected is then shoved into the upper house? That just doesn't seem very democratic.
It doesn't seem very democratic, and to be fair and balanced, because I like to try and be fair and balanced sometimes, you know, it's not just Labour who are doing this.
No, indeed.
Kemi Badenoch's put in a load of people.
She has.
You know, all of the political parties do it. The Lib Dems have done the same as well. They're all guilty of whacking people in there, and I get it, because you want to try and balance the numbers. I understand.
But how many people do you need in a revising chamber?
Exactly. I think the House of Lords in its current form should be scrapped. We need a second chamber. We should have that safety mechanism, if you like, of checks and balances to be able to challenge the stuff that comes out of the House of Commons. But this is no longer fit for purpose.
There was one that really stood out to me. This is Toby Young, the outspoken journalist and educationalist. He's become a Tory peer. He founded one of the early free schools. He obviously has been embroiled in a sort of battle with progressive activists. I actually welcome that one. I think he probably is the right type of
I agree.
person to
Big
go into
fan
the
of
upper
Toby
house.
Young, also an associate editor of The Spectator. Has been a bit of a lone voice because he's runs the Free Speech Union as well, doesn't he?
He does.
So, you know, he goes into bat for people who have either been cancelled or lost their jobs because they dare to say something that their bosses might disagree with, or students that they've been teaching kick off about. So I'm a big Toby Young fan, which puts you and I in a difficult position because it's almost like we don't mind certain people going in the House of Lords if we like them.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a good point. What about Sue Gray, though? Because, of course, she I don't think had an easy relationship with Keir Starmer. If you remember, she was then promoted/demoted to being heads of the nations and regions or whatever it was. She turned that down, and now Starmer sticks her in the upper house. Why?
To keep her quiet?
Yeah.
It's a reward, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, she knows where the bodies are buried, to coin a phrase, and probably knows where the spades are kept.
And just in terms of that, how would you try and replace that chamber? And I've often thought about this. Do you have some sort of elected upper chamber?
Yeah.
Because when you look at most democracies around the world, there is a revision chamber. I think it is very important. It's very dull, actually. A lot of what the House of Lords does, and through friends like Claire Fox, for example, I know more about what the House
It's
of
the
Lords
detail,
does.
isn't it?
It is the detail.
Yeah. They analyse the detail. I think it's certainly got to be elected. I don't know what size we'd cap it at, though. I just don't know where we'd start with that. Does it need to reflect the 650 plus MPs in the Commons? Don't know. But I think the baseline has to be they have to be elected. We can't carry on just handing out places in the House of Lords to someone who might have funded the Labour Party or indeed the Conservative Party or anyone else.
Because it brought abject chaos through strikes, and then you give them a pay rise.
And the other thing, David, it's you and I and people listening and watching Talk this morning who pick up the tab, the taxpayer. We're funding all of this.
100%. There was another story actually late last night about Starmer saying he doesn't regret anything that he's done. And when I read that headline, I thought, you know, is it naivety is he just so displaced from reality? When you look at the winter fuel payments that are being denied to the elderly people, the WASPy women, whether it's the inheritance tax on farms, VAT on private schools, I mean, I could go on and on. He's the most disliked Prime Minister, as far as I can see, as far as records go back. He wouldn't do anything different. What drives him?
What drives him? I don't know what drives him, but I think he's tone deaf when it comes to understanding the mood of this country. I know people who work in the NHS, who voted Labour, thought this was the answer to all of their problems, and even they're going, don't like what he's doing about this, don't like what he's doing about that. They've got buyer's remorse. I mean, I have no sympathy because, you know, if you look at history, it wasn't going to be any different. And it's fascinating to watch it all play out. Mistake after mistake after mistake. There's a little bit of class war going on here with the VAT 20% VAT on public school fees. There's stuff that, if you're into politics and you want to talk about the optics, you just shake your head in disbelief. I mean, the winter fuel allowance stuff, no manifesto, you know, a couple of weeks of getting into power, up rocks our Chancellor, you know, Rachel from Accounts or Customer Services or whatever she's calling herself this week, you know, coming out with this stuff, and you just think, where is this coming from? Because in the great scheme of things, it doesn't save a great deal of money. And, you know, she will say, oh, no, well, we need to balance the books.
22 billion, black hole,
22 billion. You know, you're going to get all of that going on, yet they can find money for, like, overseas climate aid. So there's money there. These are all political choices.
I mean, it's quite interesting this morning. This is the front page of the Mirror, Return of the Family Doctor. This is a great spin from the Mirror about how Wes Streeting is actually going to change the NHS. I mean, you can't conjure doctors out of nowhere. Let me just ask you, if I may, Keir Starmer, I think, has a lot of problems, and we now, according to some senior journalists, senior Labour MPs and cabinet ministers are now talking openly about Keir Starmer not leading the party in the next election. How long's he got?
I think it's really interesting. So when I'm not wearing Santa hats here at Talk, I ply my trade elsewhere as a political commentator without the Santa hat. And, you know, I was doing some telly last weekend somewhere, and I was talking off camera to a couple of the people who I was working with, and I said, you know what, I just don't think he's going to last the course. And they went, no, they won't get rid of him. And I found myself thinking, do you know what, it's not necessarily him being got rid of. He doesn't look like he's enjoying it. Every TV interview you see or radio interview you hear, it's almost like there's a gun to his head. You know, there's no charisma, there's zero personality. He bristles at any form of hard questioning. I think a combination of him just going, I've had enough, and actually some of his party colleagues, namely I would suggest Angela Rayner and Wes Streeting, on manoeuvres, well, probably, I don't think he's going to last a term at this rate.
No, I would agree.
I really don't. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me in 2 years' time if he's gone.
2 years? You'll give him that long?
Well, another year and a half on top of the 6 months.
Well, let me just throw that out. I just think it's a really interesting talking point. So this morning, I'm just asking you, how long do you think Keir Starmer has got? Do you think he will actually try and carry on? I agree totally. He has no kind of grasp, I think, of the portfolio. He has no understanding of how the country feels. He hates any kind of hard questioning, and then he reverts to saying, well, it was the Tory government. But you can't do that. You can't continue to do that. So let me just ask you this morning, how long do you think Keir Starmer has got? Do you think he can actually see out this parliamentary term? Are there forces amassing? And if so, who is it? Is it Angela Rayner? Is it Wes Streeting? We have our thoughts on that. The number 0344 499 1000. The calls are charged at the national rate. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can also message us on X at talkTV. I need to go to a break, but before I do, I just want to talk about the front page of The Telegraph this morning. This is an extraordinary story.
It is.
I sort of had to read it 3 or 4 times this morning. The IVF pioneer, the secret sperm donors and families torn apart. This is about 2 people who essentially, as many of us do, go to Ancestry.com, you find out a little bit about it. They got an alert to say, oh, look, they were related, but they had no idea they were related. But they were both IVF babies. And this, they fear that Patrick Steptoe, who actually invented IVF, who got a Nobel Prize for that, secretly impregnated their mothers with sperm that had come from the clinical pathologist on another floor.
It's bizarre, like you, because you flagged it up this morning and I had to read it 3 times to properly understand it. What is really interesting, but also massively depressing, because this potentially could open a big can of worms, is there are no records kept.
None.
Regarding the sperm donors. So potentially you could have had people in this building, this fertility clinic at Oldham Hospital. They talk about the 1970s. And I'm choosing my language really, really carefully for this early hour on a Saturday morning. But you could have had all of these men providing samples as part of this fertility clinic.
From the pathology lab.
From the pathology. And anyone else who might be knocking around, you know? And it's just like, well, where are the records? No one's going to know.
I mean, it is absolutely gobsmacking.
Yeah.
It's the front page of the Daily Telegraph. An odd lead, I would say, but obviously things happened overnight.
Yes.
That's the front page of the Daily Telegraph. We need to go to a break. How long has Starmer got, do you think? Can he hang on? Also, which forces are amassing behind him? Who is going to take over? I mean, I can't see Angela Rayner as Prime Minister, but then maybe I'm wrong. I couldn't see Keir Starmer as Prime Minister either. But let me know your thoughts on that. Also, I've got some great postbox toppers. I'm going to show you those a little later on as well. After the break, we'll take you through all of this morning's front pages. Duncan also has chosen some choice stories this morning. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
All the senior leadership around security and defense were told, sorry, he's having a bad day. That's code for he's got cognitive challenges and couldn't function. So we had a president who was cognitively impaired, and then he ran for president again, which was
crazy.
sickening. And they covered up that as well. The press did a great job covering for the Democrat Party until it was not sustainable anymore after the famous June 27th debate. And the only reason they pulled him was because he was polling 5 points behind Trump.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Talk. Yes, 6:26, Saturday, December the 21st. I'm David Bull. I'm joined by Duncan Box, who keeps grinning at me inane.
Well, it's because I've got this swinging ball here.
Yeah, I see, yes,
on my hat.
Well, very festive indeed. You do look splendid. By the way, very good morning to Sophie Preston Hall. I'm glad you managed to find where we were on YouTube. Well done. Your browser wouldn't work, so obviously we were pleased to provide technical support this morning. Apparently you're watching with a cocktail in your hand.
Oh, very civilised.
Yeah, marvellous.
What
well
kind
done.
of cocktail?
Well, I don't know. Sophie, can you get in touch and tell us what kind of cocktail you are having at this time of the morning? Jane Ferguson, good morning to you. You are there front and centre as per usual. You've got coffee and toast in your hand. Merry Christmas to you and all your crew and guests as well. Lots of messages coming in this morning. Good morning to you, Stuart. David, I'm not a Labour supporter, but there is no way Keir Starmer can lead Labour at the next election because no one will believe anything he promises in the campaign. That's a brilliant point, isn't it?
It is. It's a very good point. I mean, he's tarnished, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's there, all of the sound bites, all of the interviews. What I found really interesting, I mean, the latest kind of like, we're doing this now, but you said you were going to do something else, is the Waspy women, right? You know, I mean, all right, it wasn't in the manifesto, but all you have to do is look at social media and pretty much most of that cabinet at some point in the last few years have been, because the Waspy Women's campaign has been quite effective, you know, pictured with a campaigner just going, yes, this is disgusting, you should get some compensation, etc., etc., etc. And then they just decide, oh, well, we haven't got the money for it.
But Rachel Reeves campaigned for the Waspy Women with her mother, who is a Waspy woman.
Yeah, so, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is when it comes to the next election, if he's leading and she's still Chancellor, all of this stuff, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're the Lib Dems, Tories or Reform, those are the attack points. It's just like you can't believe a word these people say, and here's the evidence. And there's a shed load of evidence.
There is a shed load of evidence. And also, I think Labour has always portrayed the former Conservative government as uncaring.
Yes.
And yet they take away the winter fuel allowance. I've got a message on that as well. James in Manchester, good morning to you. James says, good morning, Dr. David. It is absolutely freezing this morning. I'm reminded of pensioners going cold this winter. I hope Reform hold Labour to account for the excess deaths that will happen. I believe Starmer is counting on the pension savings from the deaths. I believe. I mean, I just don't know how you... I understand the fiscal frugality and all the rest of it, but when you are presented in the cold light of day with that and saying to pensioners, we're going to take away your money, I've heard from many pensioners who are living in one room with a one-bar fire on in this day and age who don't want to turn the heating on because they're so worried. That is unacceptable. But also the cost, and I know this with my other hat on, the cost of older people then bouncing into hospital where they'll take up beds and they don't do well, and it's very difficult to get elderly people out of hospital.
What was that phrase you used? Fiscal frugality.
Fiscal frugality.
But is there? I mean...
Well, shit, though, apparently there's 20 billion black hole.
Because this goes back to a point that we talked about earlier. There's money for overseas climate aid. I know. There's money for inflation-busting
net zero, isn't there?
For train drivers and people in the public sector. There is money. This is all about political choice. Right?
It is.
So that's the first point I'd make. The second point, I mean, I think the winter fuel allowance scrapping is going to be a stain on this government's history. There's a story in one of today's newspapers, we might talk about it later, but I did some research about this during the week, right, because today is the deadline to apply for pension credit.
That's right.
Today is the deadline, OK? Two things people need to be aware of. There's a 60-day time period in processing the applications, right? That is 2 months, OK? 2 of the coldest months we're going to have in this country, by my reckoning, right? That's the first thing to consider. Absolute disgrace. You're going, oh, well, you know, we have this system, we've had this campaign going, raising awareness of pension credit and how you apply. The processing time is 60 days, 2 months. Appalling, and people will freeze or have an impact on their health. Second thing I discovered, do you know how many questions there are as part of the pension credit application?
Oh, it's a huge form.
243 questions. In what world is that acceptable?
But not only that, for people to have a grasp of that form and to understand it, are they trying desperately to stop people actually filling it in?
Well, I think there's a wider thing here. It's about the civil service. It's about the public sector, which, you know, is previous governments, and I wouldn't just lay the blame at Labour, I'd also say the last Conservative government that never really got to grips with the civil service and how it works, people who work in various departments. The processes are archaic, you know? And you know this from the NHS. You've worked in the NHS. You know, we're still mucking around with paper files.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I was talking to Dr. Rene about the amount of paperwork you have to do to refer someone to a hospital. And of course they make it very difficult. None of the systems talk to each other. And to give him some credit, Wes Streeting is talking about trying to simplify that, and I welcome that. Duncan, thanks for the moment. I do have to go to a break again, I'm afraid. That's because I was late the first time. Do we have my Christmas Grinch? Can I show that, the postbox topper? Have we got that ready to go? Let's have a look. Thank you very much for all of these. Look at that one! This is, so this is on a postbox. That's good, isn't it?
That's great.
This was sent to me by Morgan Redhead. So as you can see, one of the things that I'm very keen on is these postbox toppers. Gerald Austin has sent me some as well. But that, I think, is, for those of you listening on radio, you've got the traditional postbox there, and then he's got a rather lovely green crocheted topper to that, and then replete with the Grinch's head and the hands.
Where is that? Do we know? Where is that in the United Kingdom?
I think it's in Wales.
Yeah, that's shop.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to say, it looks like it comes... What?
No, I was going to say, look, the shop sign. Isn't that a bit of Welsh
well
on the shop sign?
What does that say? I can't actually.
I don't know, I could be wrong.
You could be wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks very much for that. We're getting in the festive spirit here. We certainly are. As Christmas fast approaches, we'll take a break, and then I promise we will go through this morning's front pages. Do get in touch. How long has Keir Starmer got as Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party? Let me know the time. 6:33. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, 6:35 Weekend Breakfast. I'm David Bull. Duncan Barks joins me this morning, resplendent in a Santa hat. Lots of you getting in touch, actually. I'm going to go on a slight deviation here. Let's take a call. Adrian is in sunny Perth. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. David. It's not very sunny, but...
Oh, all right. Well, I was trying to big it up.
That's good. But I think it was just in relation to Keir Starmer and just about talking about Perth. It's a lot colder up here as well.
Yep.
And when you get that easterly wind, and I feel it every time, and I feel a great sense of sorrow for the older people who are suffering and who are too proud to even make any claim. And I think the colleague you're with has made a very important piece of information that it's going to take 2 months to actually get the forms acknowledged even. But I think Keir Starmer will be in for the term.
Do you?
I don't want him to be in.
Why do you think that?
Because I think he's got power, negative power. I think he likes trotting around the world.
He's never here, is he?
No, he's not. But I think he likes that. I think he likes going on a lovely jet, getting wonderful service, seeing world leaders. And I think as well, he's lost his reputation anywhere in the world because nobody would ever believe him. This is his last and final job, I think mainly because of his age. But who in their right mind would employ him? It's just... And I look at the cabinet he's got, they're just as bad, they're diabolical.
It's a cabinet of mediocrity, isn't it?
And yeah, and whatever you think about the Westby women, whether they deserve the payback or not, you only have to look at past TV presentations, they're on radio presentations, they're all behind them. So it's just, to me, blatant. Well, it's not lying, but it's not delivering what they said they would do.
And that, for me, is the nub of this. It's so duplicitous that you come into power and you say you're going to do certain things, and I've mentioned this before on this programme. I just think it's fundamentally wrong that people vote believing that when they vote for that party, this is what they get, and they get something altogether different.
Absolutely. And I know you have a residence in Suffolk, but it's very agricultural up here, and the farmers I talk to feel very let down.
Yeah, same.
Now, I think just, buying a combine harvester, for example, is around £1 million.
It is, yeah.
So it won't take long for anybody to meet that threshold, and the profit they make is next to nothing. My other concern with Keir Starmer is I'm just wondering if he's quite happy just to see this country go down the drain and that we be ruled by people like China, or I just don't understand where the world's going to, and I just feel there's something deeper behind Keir Starmer.
Well, I mean, I would agree. And also, when he was asked about his priorities in life, the first thing that came out was Davos. That speaks volumes to me about where his priorities lie. Certainly not in this country. Really good to talk to you, Adrian. Thanks,
David. Just very happy Christmas to you, and thank you for your presentations over the year.
Oh, you're very sweet. Thank you very much. Happy Christmas to you, Adrian, as well. That's Adrian there in Perth in Scotland. Let's go through this morning's front pages if you are just waking up. Let's start, if we can, with the Daily Mail. This is this shocking story I was talking about this morning. Carnage at Christmas market. Duncan and I were talking about this. This isn't the first time this has happened. A car ploughed into a Christmas market last night in a suspected terror attack. I've had lots of messages saying this is a Muslim doctor, we believe, who drove into this crowd and that I need to condemn it as a terrorist atrocity. I don't know, and that's why I haven't done that, by the way. I'm not pussyfooting around. I'm actually dealing in facts. Reports suggested 11 people. I'll just have a look at the latest here. This is Magdeburg. I've been corrected in my pronunciation. 68 people injured, 15 of them seriously. 2 people, including a child, were killed as Christmas approaches. Horrifying scenes in the city of Magdeburg, 100 miles west of Berlin. The footage is absolutely horrific. A dark-coloured BMW being driven at speed into the crowd, packed with families and children, travelling 400 yards before coming to a stop at the opposite end of the markets. Victims were seen sprawled on the ground. Other revellers fled in terror, children wailing as small crowds formed around the injured, desperately trying to help. Let's move on to The Guardian now. The Guardian's headline this morning, Reeves, I won't gaslight voters over the economy. I'm going to ask Duncan his thoughts on this. Rachel Reeves insists she won't gaslight working people. This is one of those words that seems to have sprung up. Working people over her plans to turn around the economy. What I find absolutely fascinating, she launches this absolutely vicious attack on Nigel Farage and on Reform UK. So she now says she defends her approach. This is about fixing the foundations that she's managed to do in her robot way. And of course, the thing is that she's ignoring the fact that we've got interest rate, that we've got inflation going up to 2.6%.
Yeah.
We are entering a period of stagflation. What people desperately need is for Bank of England to get that under control, to interest rates to come down, but she seems to not actually care about that. What I find fascinating, she is very nervous, obviously, about Reform UK growing in popularity, and that is partly because Nigel, and I would say this, wouldn't I, he's a charismatic leader, but also he is basically saying this country is an absolute mess. She then goes further to say, what's Nigel Farage's answer on the economy? He hasn't a clue. I can tell you, he seems to have more of a clue than she does.
So Labour are right to be scared, as are the Conservatives, but I think there is a theory that the amount of support from former Conservative voters that have gone to Reform is probably at the highest level now, right? I don't know if that's true or not. Where I think the big gains in the next 12 months will be from Labour in terms of the Labour vote and the Labour vote share. Reform came second in 98 constituencies in the last general election. 89 of those were seats won by Labour, right? That's why they're terrified. You look at the economy, it's gone into stagnation. The Bank of England mentioned that during the week. I don't like the word gaslight. I hate it. It doesn't make sense to normal people. It's something that has been adopted by politicians and elements of the media. All I know...
Like working people.
Indeed. All I know is that if you talk to anyone in the private sector, i.e. anyone who runs a business, they're telling you they're not going to be investing. They're telling you they can't necessarily afford some of the announcements made in the budget, like the increase in employers' national insurance, the hike in minimum wage. They can't afford any of that. I know a guy who runs a couple of pubs in West Sussex, because that's where I live. He has 60 staff across 2 pubs. They have rooms as well as a great couple of restaurants and stuff. He's having to look at getting rid of a third of his workforce because he simply can't afford these increased costs. None of this is rocket science. The CBI have come out and just said, you know, your budget has killed private enterprise. You don't get growth from the public sector. Growth happens in your economy from people who are entrepreneurs, SME owners, people who are prepared to work until 11 o'clock at night for their own business. And increasingly, this government has removed any incentives to do that, right? She's an idiot.
OK. I mean... I would agree with all of the above, including that sentiment as well. But also Nigel Farage does understand this. He does understand small business, but obviously I'm partisan.
So maybe there's an argument there, and you know, I'm sure it'll happen over the course of time. If the attack line is coming from Labour, and I've heard it from Conservative MPs as well, that it's very easy for Reform to say, oh yeah, everything's rubbish, vote for us, then the simplest thing to do in the next year is to start outlining some policies. And then where's the attack line?
Well, so it was interesting. I was at a drinks party, thanks, Richard, for that drinks party the other night, and actually a very senior Conservative MP said the only way forward is for Reform to do a deal with the Conservatives. And I said, absolutely not. We did that before, and you completely shafted Reform, and that is not going to happen. Now, interestingly, this Member of Parliament said, the Tories will have to learn to become second fiddle to Reform, but I thought that's interesting, and also it shows a misunderstanding, which is, and you're right, that Reform is taking votes from both sides, from Labour and from Conservatives.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of narrative that is generated by this idea that, like, Reform are the real Conservative Party, they're a big threat to the Tories. They are, but also they are a big, if not bigger, threat to the Labour Party, particularly in the north of this country.
Totally agree. Duncan, thanks for the moment. We'll continue with the front pages after this break. This is Talk, this is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
always wanted this sort of like decrepit, demented, ventriloquist dummy.
Yeah.
So people who are faceless, who are unelected, who are unaccountable, were actually in charge.
Right.
It's sickening.
And don't feel sorry for Joe, because you could see his ego in play here, and the fact that he didn't volunteer to step aside and let someone else run for president, it just shows you the sheer power hungriness of Joe Biden and his family, and Dr. Jill especially.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:48. Where are we? Weekend Breakfast. Good morning. David Paul, Duncan Parks is with me this morning. So many messages coming in. Andy, I'm asking this morning, how long can Starmer hang on? And many of us are saying, well, actually, I don't think he'll hang on that long. But let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Andy says, due to all the lies told to gain power, a constitutional crisis should now be declared by the King to dissolve Parliament, and there should be a new general election held in 6 months' time. If the King doesn't act, then the monarchy should also be dissolved. Wow. That's pretty harsh words from Andy. Keep all of those messages coming in. I'm going to whiz through the rest of the front pages this morning. Let's go to the weekend. Many of you will know this story. The UK's worst rail firms are cancelling 800 trains a day ahead of travel getaway turmoil and storm. I do wonder what we're paying for. Britain's 10 worst train companies are cancelling 800 services a day. Travellers are facing chaos over the Christmas holidays. The rail misery will increase over the festive period. London North Western Railway urging people to avoid trains from... That's a great piece of travel advice. Yeah. From Christmas Eve to the 2nd of January, Great Western Railway telling passengers, don't bring a suitcase.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
The performance, all of these are pretty appalling. But even though the service is absolutely dreadful, of course, fares are going up by more than inflation.
There's also a story linked to this, isn't there? That we have the new Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander. She replaced the other one who had a penchant for what appears to be a mobile phone collection habit. And what was quite interesting is she was talking about the fact that since they've bumped up the pay of some train drivers, they won't work extra shifts at the weekend. So consequently, services are being cancelled. I mean, in what world do you go into a situation where you say to train drivers, well, here, you want some more money, here's some money, and you don't kind of extract some kind of concession or guarantee that...
So Victorian working practices still exist. You know, the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous.
It's just like, if they want more money, give them more money, but also it's just like, you can have some more money, but you're going to have at least do an extra 2 shifts a month or whatever in order to keep the services running. I mean, it's preposterous.
You should run the railways. The front page of the Daily Telegraph, we spoke about this, the IVF pioneers, secret sperm donors and families torn apart. If you are just joining us, an incredible story about two people who independently went off and did an ancestry thing, ancestry.com, found out they were related. They were both IVF babies. Turns out they came from the same clinic, and the sperm came from the pathologist, it appears, at that hospital. The Times front page... This is an extraordinary story and actually a sign of the times. The boom in weight loss jabs. 500,000 people in the UK are now taking weight loss injections bought online. Yeah. As private pharmacies cash in on the absurdly slow NHS introduction of the drugs. I mean, this shows just the number of people who are overweight, but 95% of people taking the drugs buy them online. Demand is fueled by a proliferation of thousands of illegal social media adverts. The Times has found 53 online pharmacies selling GLP-1 medications. This costs about £150 to £200 a month. thousands of severely obese patients resorting to the weight loss drugs, buying them privately, because, of course, the NHS says it will cap those at 220,000. But, I mean, what a sad indictment of our country.
There's a couple of things there. I mean, first off, why would you buy something off the internet that you don't actually know where it's come from and how genuine it is? You have no idea what's in it. And you don't know what's in it, and you're injecting it into your body. I mean, you've got to be a little bit moronic to do that. Secondly, look, I get it that there are people who are extremely overweight. There are people who are obese. I'm overweight. I've lost a couple of stone in the last year and a half, predominantly because tail end of last year I had to have a hip replacement and I had to lose some weight. All right, and I did that by changing my diet. I couldn't do a great deal of exercise because it hurt, but I did some exercise, bike stuff because, you know, it's minimal impact. I want to lose a bit more weight, right? We now live in a culture where everybody wants convenience and a quick fix. You're like, oh, just get this drug. I'll get it off the internet. 100%. Right? You want to lose some weight, change your diet, and do some exercise. You don't have to join a gym. You can walk. You know, stop eating the fast food and the donuts.
Cook.
And you will cook healthily, which you can do relatively cheaply, and you will see a change in your weight. None of this is rocket science. And I hate how I sound, because I know I sound like I'm preaching, but I've done it, right? And I love my grub.
How difficult was that?
It was hard. I mean, I reduced my carbs massively. I stopped eating bread. I stopped eating pasta.
What, the whole, completely?
Yeah, completely.
Just in the evening?
For about 6 months, I just stopped. And I would ration potatoes. So it'd be like roast potatoes, maybe at the weekend. That would be it. The biggest challenge I had, and I still have, and if I stopped eating cheese and drinking red wine tomorrow, I reckon I could shift another stone. Well, yeah, I know. I'm
but life's too short.
Life is too short.
And it's also Christmas.
Yeah.
Actually, a friend of mine's given up drinking for Christmas. And I was like, wow, you've got to have real, you know, you've got to be very strong to do that.
I learned something. As someone who enjoys the occasional tipple, 6 weeks after my hip-hop, I was on some medication and I couldn't drink. And I did realise what it's like to be remarkably sober when you're surrounded by people who are drinking.
Who think they're hilarious.
And they repeat themselves so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Let's move on. The Daily Mirror front page. This is Wes Streeting. We spoke about this earlier as well. Return of the family doctor. He says, this is the health secretary, says more patients will see the same doctor each time. How's that going to work? 889 million quid he's chucking at that problem. That's the solution, it seems. The GPs have welcomed that. Well, of course they have. They hope to end the infuriating 8 a.m. scramble. I just don't understand how that's going to work. They say we're slashing red tape, binning outdated performance targets. The one thing I do think is good about this, the 76 performance targets which are imposed on family doctors will be slashed to 44. I think that is right. He goes on to say that practices are now required to fill in 150 different forms to refer patients to other services, but fundamentally I don't think that changes the outcome here, because you can't magically make doctors appear from nowhere. Daily Express. This is the King. King positive about return to full duties. The King is feeling positive as he gears up for a return to full duties next year after his cancer battle. He was asked yesterday how he is, and he said still alive. See, I quite like that.
I do like him.
He's energised. He's going about his business. I mean, there's a lot of talk in the copy here about the fact that actually he is going to have more treatment next year, but he's looking forward to a brighter and busier 2025. This month, he hosted a state visit, conducted 7 royal engagements, 2 investiture ceremonies, held 2 Privy Council meetings, dozens of audiences, and, of course, still having treatment at the same time. I think more people should take a leaf out of his book. The Daily Star, oh my God, we'll talk about this in the next hour. The headline is, well, this is awkward. And there is a picture of the man baby, an orange man baby, Donald Trump, cuddling Peter Mandelson. It should be a lively first meeting. The UK's new ambassador to the US meets Donald Trump. You may remember Peter Mandelson called Trump a danger to the world.
Yes. Well, it's interesting, isn't it, how previous comments made by Labour politicians when they were in opposition are coming back to haunt them.
Yeah. This is another priceless thing, and of course Keir Starmer thinks this is a brilliant appointment that he's put Peter Mandelson in here, and a Trump aide said Lord Mandelson was an absolute moron. Great word. It's a great word, not used enough. It's a great word, and it summarises the situation rather brilliantly and pithily, I think, this morning. Let's look at the front page of The Sun. This is Prince Andrew. Andy's feeling rough, spelled R-U-F-F. Apparently Prince Andrew is sulking He's dejected by his fall from grace, and he's even stopped walking the Queen's corgis.
Oh, poor corgis.
Yes. Yeah. So apparently the flunkies have to take, and that's a great word as well.
I like flunky.
Yeah. Flunkies have to take the pets out to the grounds at Windsor instead. And of course he's been snubbed. This is about their deals, you know, this alleged spy that he's been hanging out with. You know, Prince Andrew, there was a great comment actually about him and about Harry. And the fact is that they're both a huge problem.
They are. I read a piece for the Daily Express last weekend about Prince Andrew, and the words I used were naive, foolish and irresponsible. And I think they still apply. And they also apply to Harry as well, when you think about it, really, don't you? I mean, I think we could spend hours debating how their lack of judgment has come about in some of their decision-making. I don't have a great deal of sympathy for Prince Andrew. In fact, I don't think he'll be here in a year's time. I think he'll be in a Gulf nation trying to earn some money.
Do you?
Yeah.
And I've just found what they called him. Him and Harry are known as by the insiders in the palace as the Dukes of Hazard, which I think is rather brilliant. I have visions of them jumping into one of those orange cars.
Yeah.
You have to be a certain age to know what we're talking about. Yeah. So the question I'm asking this morning, Keir Starmer, how long has he got? How long can he hang on, do you think? The number 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can also message us on X as well at talkTV. Lots of messages coming in. Hi, David. This is David Thomas. Hi, David. Good morning. Reform and the Tories. We mentioned this earlier. A note from history should be recalled if Reform ever consider adopting failing Tories, that of the Trojan horse. The main parties would like nothing more than Reform to fail. What better way than from within, caveat emptor?
Ooh, interesting.
Very interesting. No name on this one. Rachel Reeves. What an awful woman this woman really is, this Chancellor is, given her abysmal and incompetent performance over the last 6 months, and we were talking about that as well, of the fact is that she's throwing her weight around and says Nigel Farage is incompetent and doesn't have any clues about what to do with the economy. Well, I would argue that she doesn't seem to know what to do with the economy either. Keep all of those messages. One more quick one. Sharon Miller, Duncan Bucks, you are right. Rachel Reeves is a complete idiot.
Did I say that?
Apparently you did, and if Farage was our Prime Minister, this country would not be in this state. So well said, Duncan Box. You are right, yes. According to Sharon Miller. Good morning to you, Sharon. Right, we'll move on. We have to go to a break now, but after the break, we're going to be talking about some other news stories. We're going to be talking about Peter Mandelson picked as British ambassador to the United States. The response from the United States, he's a moron.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Ho, ho, ho! Hello, good morning. It's just after 7 o'clock on Saturday, December the 21st. I'm David Bull. This is Weekend Breakfast. Do you like the festive background? Yeah, we're going all out now. Not long to go until Christmas. Also, some other good news this morning. That's right. It's Don't Make Your Bed Day. Now, the day was originally requested by a 5th grader in New Jersey. How enterprising. She wrote to Congress and she said, look, we need to have a day off from making our beds. And this holiday encourages you to turn your back on those repetitive tasks and to feel a little bit rebellious. Great song, actually. Great track. It's the winter solstice today. It's an astronomical phenomenon that sees the northern hemisphere have its longest night, thank goodness for that, and the shortest day of the year. Yeah. Now, also, thank you. There are just 4 sleeps to go until Christmas. That means there are 3 shopping days left for those in a panic.
A very Merry Christmas from all of us. Ho ho!
Ho ho, indeed. Let's start today's show, shall we?
Today's fascinating facts.
So some new ones for you this hour. On this day in 1842, Pentonville Prison, Islington, was opened. Pentonville became the model for British prisons. In fact, a further 54 were built to the same design over 6 years. Hundreds more were built throughout the British Empire. Also, on this day in 2012, the youngest female drivers faced significant increases in their insurance costs. This was after a ban on different car insurance prices for men and women. I seem to recall this. There was a European court ruling the previous year found that gender discrimination in insurance was against the law. And on this day in 2013, can't quite believe this, a poll showed that 1 in 10 people aged 25 to 34 in Britain thought that Father Christmas was mentioned in the biblical account of the birth of Jesus. And those are today's fascinating facts.
Celebrate the season with laughter and style. David and Duncan, let's stay for a while. The David Bull Breakfast Show is raising the bar.
There we go.
Wow.
You're now famous.
My mind is blown. I'm touched.
Yeah, it's lovely, actually.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave, for that. I know he stays up all night making all of those jingles, so thank you very much for that. Let's talk about, I mean, if you are just waking up this morning, lots in the papers, lots of different stories this morning, actually. We were slightly captivated by this story in the Telegraph this morning about these 2 people who found out they were related by doing the Ancestry.com test. It turns out that actually they're both IVF babies, and the sperm came from the pathology department. We talked about that. We talked about this terrible story about this is the front page of the Daily Mail. This is an ongoing situation. Carnage at the Christmas market. This is an absolutely appalling story this morning. This is in Magdeburg. 2 people, including a child, were killed, 68 people injured, 15 of them seriously, according to city officials. The suspect, a 50-year-old Saudi doctor, is believed to have acted alone. Rachel Reeves on the defensive here, and this is the front page of The Guardian this morning, saying Nigel Farage, she's clearly worried about Farage, has no idea how to fix the economy. Well, neither do you, Rachel Reeves. And I would suggest that possibly Nigel Farage knows a little bit more. There's also a big story in the Times this morning, a boom in weight loss jabs. This is because people are desperate to get hold of the GLP-1 agonist, which they're injecting. Duncan spoke about that. And also the Mirror has a staunch defence of Wes Streeting, saying there's going to be a return of the family doctor. He's chucking 900 million quid at the GPs to say you need to end the 8 a.m. scramble. Well, we will see if that is the case. I want to talk about Lord Mandelson now, if we can, because Lord Mandelson, we found out, is to be made the British ambassador to the United States. Now, there's a lot going on here because Keir Starmer is desperate to try and have good relations with Trump because Trump has said there will be a trade war, and he needs to show that the United Kingdom is a staunch ally and friend of the United States. Now, the appointment of Lord Mandelson is really weird, I think. I mean, he was a former EU commissioner. He's not expected, because he was that he's not expected to take up a role where there could be a conflict of interest between the EU and the US. If he has broken the rules, then he could lose his right to a pension. I think it is worth just reminding ourselves, in 2018, Lord Mandelson called Trump a bully.
Yes.
Also, in response to this, and this is where the story has moved on this morning, Donald Trump's campaign manager has called Lord Mandelson an absolute moron, and he should stay at home.
One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is purely because I love the Sun's headline this morning. I'm going to say it twice because I think it's magnificent. Hump at Mandy, dump on Trump. That's hump at Mandy, dump on Trump.
Sounds like a web address.
Not one I want to visit.
No.
And they look at various comments. Mandy, as they call Lord Mandelson, told a podcast during Mr. Trump's first term in the White House, "I wake up today and discover that not only am I seeing my country, which I love, being forced out of its own European neighbourhood, yawn, but it's crossing the Atlantic to make common sense with an American president who is little short of a white nationalist and racist." His comments. I mean, there's a track record here, and we touched on this in the last hour, of Labour politicians who were quite quick to spout off about Donald Trump when he had his first term in office, and perhaps didn't, even consider he might be back in some form. And these comments are coming back to haunt them. And I mean, this is going to come down to Donald Trump, isn't it, and how pragmatic he is when he first meets Lord Mandelson. Is he going to hold this grudge, or is he going to try and make the relationship work? We know that Donald Trump is not a fan of the EU. We know that Lord Mandelson has many EU links. Is that going to be an issue between them? And also, I suppose we need to look at this idea about where we end up in terms of this country and where our relationships go, because I'm of the Boris Johnson school of cake eating, right? So, this phrase that you can't have your cake and eat it. Well, what's the point in having cake if you can't eat it? One of the benefits, I think, of Brexit is the fact that we should be able to have trade deals with whoever we want around the world, all right? We shouldn't be when we were tied up with the EU, we couldn't just go and have a trade deal with America. Now we're free from the shackles of Brussels. We want a good relationship with the US in terms of trade. We don't want any tariffs. Tariffs get in the way of free trade. They stop people earning money. They stop increasing people's standard of living. Equally, we want a decent trade deal with the European Union or European countries because they're our closest neighbours. We should have the best of both worlds. My concern here is that Mandelson may well be a tad biased towards the EU given his background.
Well, funny you should mention cake. He says we've got to navigate our way through this and have, I'm afraid, the best of both worlds. We have got to find a way to have our cake and eat it.
Good.
And he is right in that, and you are right. The whole point of Brexit and the whole reason that I did what I did and that we did what we did was to do exactly that, which we haven't done. We haven't seized this opportunity. Now, also, I just think when you have someone like Mandelson who has been pretty vile about Trump in the past, that seems an extraordinary appointment to me. What is going through Starmer's head?
It's a political appointment,
yes, isn't it? Because it's a very important job.
Exactly. It's purely a political appointment. The previous or the current ambassador, Dame Karen Pierce, someone who, as I understand it, has been a lifelong civil servant, really, and has done the job quietly and diligently. This is a clear political appointment on behalf of Keir Starmer.
Now, Mandelson has also mooted that there should be a role for Nigel Farage here. And actually, what about making Farage could have been ambassador?
So, without plugging some work that I do elsewhere, but I will use this opportunity, a few weeks ago I wrote a piece for the Daily Express with my political commentator hat on, saying that if Keir Starmer's got any sense, he'll be trying to work up a better relationship with Nigel Farage regarding trying to get influence and tapping into Nigel's friendship and relationship with Donald Trump. I mean, why wouldn't you? And then we did see afterwards, I'm not suggesting my piece had anything to do with it, in the House of Commons, do you remember that footage where Starmer sought out Nigel Farage, went up to him and had a chin wag, which I thought was quite interesting. And I wrote this piece, and then someone in my local pub who happens to be, was a Labour Party candidate at the last election, bounded up to me and said, there's no way our party will ever do anything with Nigel Farage. And I thought, this is really interesting, because I quite like her as a human being. I think she's great, this particular person. I'm not going to name her. But I thought, if that...
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yeah.
But if that is a symptom of how your party feels, you're putting party before country.
Yeah.
That's not right.
No, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. It will be interesting to see how this plays out. But I love the idea that they say that Mandelson is an absolute moron. And that kind of speaks volumes about the fact that they say what they think. In fact, Nick Candy was there as well with Nigel Farage in Mar-a-Lago, and I was talking to, weirdly, the other night, to the chap who took the photograph and said it was just the most extraordinary experience to be at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah. So I was at, where was I? Thursday lunchtime. I was at lunch at a... I keep talking about pubs, don't judge me.
And cake.
I was at a pub in Westminster, an SW1, with some political...
There's the picture, you see.
Political people, and that particular picture broke on social media. It was on X and it was on Instagram, and all around the table, all of us just went, wow. You know, if you're in Conservative central office, if you're in the Labour Party headquarters, just imagine the reaction to that picture.
Yeah. And we'll talk about this later because I want to talk about donations to political parties. We'll do that in the head-to-head a little later on about where, you know, there are lots of talk about trying to cap political donations. Funny that, isn't it, when it goes to a different party?
Yeah.
But they're very happy, the Labour Party are very happy to take donations from trade unions. We will just mention this again if you are waking up. Keir Starmer has handed peerages to his former Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, jobs for the boys or girls. Along with a dozen union bosses, former Labour MPs, he's trying to strengthen his numbers in the House of Lords. This basically changes the arithmetic. So it takes them from 185 Labour peers to 211, the Tories to 232. So pretty similar. Starmer named 30 new members of the House of Lords, bringing Labour's headcount within touching distance of the Tories. And we were talking about this morning, just the role of the upper house here. You've got people being thrown into the upper house for causing chaos on the trains, for example, the union bosses, the paymasters. Yeah. I think most people waking up this morning and looking at this will just think, hang on a minute, this isn't right.
I think people are fed up with this, and I think there's a long... Well, we've had a debate in the past about what the House of Lords could or should look like. What I think is interesting about this story, a couple of years ago, Keir Starmer was pledging to scrap the House of Lords as we know it, and he's just whacked in a load of his chums into the House of Lords. Equally, the Conservatives have put people in there as well. Yep. We also talked in the last hour about it's quite a tasty gig, isn't it? If you go in the Lords, 361 quid a day in expenses, subsidised bars and restaurants. What's there not to like? Well, I'll tell you what. The thing we shouldn't like about it is the fact that you and I and people listening and watching Talk this morning, we pay for it as the taxpayer.
So the parallel to that is when I was a member of the European Parliament, we got a similar amount. We got our per diems, £300 or euros as it was then, and that was to then cover your hotel costs. And actually, I actively I mean, it was a great gig. Yeah. You know, you went in and signed in, you got your money, it's marvellous, and then you went for lunch in a subsidised restaurant, it was marvellous. Yeah. But actually, I campaigned to get us out of the European Union because it was the right thing to do. Actually, for me and my lifestyle, it would have been nicer to stay in.
Yeah, Turkey's voting for Christmas, but you know that's one of the things that was one of the key campaigning issues, wasn't it? Look at this unaccountable parliament where this money just sloshes
where you
around.
Don't even sign off your own accounts.
True. I mean, I did some work in Brussels at one point, and I was just staggered. I sat in on a couple of votes, and it was all done on the waving of people's hands.
Oh no, it was electronic when I was there,
and it was just kind of like, what? How does this work?
But also the voting is so quick you don't really know what you're voting for anyway, and then you have to look to the person who was in charge of our delegation.
Well, that's what they rely on, or relied on, and it's actually the same in the House of Commons. You talk to some MPs, because there is a concern that people just get herded in to vote, and if the whips haven't done their job, they just don't know what they're voting for. And then you see them struggling afterwards on an interview in College Green in the media, trying to kind of like make sense of the bit of policy or legislation that they voted through.
Lots of other stories this morning. I still find this extraordinary that Starmer says he has no regrets about any decisions he's made. Rupert Lowe, Reform MP, tabled a parliamentary question to uncover the cost of translation and interpretation. This is just one department, the Department for Work and Pensions. In 2019, they spent £2.7 million on translation services. It went up to £6.9 million. So over that 5-year period, they spent 27 million quid of our money on translation services. Not acceptable.
Rupert Lowe is doing terrific work. I present a podcast called A Nation of Taxpayers. We interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. It's a podcast from the Taxpayers Alliance. This guy is really rattling Parliament because he's using the parliamentary system and the processes, quite rightly, to ask questions of various departments, and you can tell either they don't want to give him the information or the data, or they don't have it, which is an absolute crime. And he's asking all of the right questions.
He absolutely is. And good for him, actually. And I know Rupert obviously very well. He's got the bit between his teeth, and he's absolutely determined to change the system. Let's just talk about. You were talking about cake and
Cake.
Yeah. More cake.
More cake.
Here's a piece of news during the week that I thought you might like. Drinking a bottle of wine a week could be better for you than statins.
Excellent.
This is a study in looking at the impact of a Mediterranean diet and drinking habits on the heart health of hundreds of people. So essentially, this was published in the European Heart Journal. They looked. So the problem with working out how much people drink is normally it's apocryphal. So people say, well, I think I had like 2 units, or you have to do a diary. They actually looked at a chemical called tartaric acid, so they could tell exactly. What they found, they looked at people after 4 or 5 years of follow-up. They looked at how much heart disease there was. Light drinkers, those consuming 3 to 12 small glasses of wine, had a 38% lower risk of heart disease. If you were a moderate drinker, 12 to 35 small glasses, they had the best results.
Well, that's a mandate, isn't it? To get the corkscrew out.
I would say so, but and then there are lots of other experts. There are lots of other experts saying that debunking this, saying it's absolute nonsense. I do have to say, in the spirit of being churlish this Christmas, do drink responsibly.
Well, yes, but I'm always struck though. You know, occasionally we get these stories that crop up of you know, the oldest woman in the world or the oldest man, and you know, it turns out to be someone who's 107 in Portugal, and the journalists ask these questions. Well, what's the secret to a long life? And it turns out that alcohol's always involved.
Always.
So follow their example.
But in moderation.
But do it responsibly.
And like my great-grandmother, she had a Guinness a day.
Excellent.
She lived to a ripe old age, let me tell you. And just very quickly, this was a story in the week, but I will just mention it. Do you go to concerts?
No, not often.
No,
I can't be doing with the queuing. I think, here we go, the prices at the bar are a rip-off. I'm considering seeing Deacon Blue live next year, though. What's that face for?
I don't like them.
Don't you?
No.
You're an 80s. You like your 80s music, don't you?
Yeah, I do, but I don't like Deacon Blue. Sorry about that.
I quite like Deacon Blue.
Well, I won't be going with you.
No, I probably won't get around to it.
No, anyway, that's not the point. This is, you know, people always say, well, why don't you go to a festival? They're really cool. Well, the idea of being in a field where you then have to go and queue for the loo, and it's not even a loo.
Nobody washes because there's nowhere to wash.
And they fall over your tent and all that. Anyway.
The smells.
So one of the big worries for people at concerts is losing your place because you have to go to the loo, and the loos are absolutely revolting. And then, so this company called Liquid Death, a US firm, Liquid Death, by the way, is a sparkling water brand. Anyway, they have come up with an adult incontinence nappy. So you can wear it with comfort.
Really?
Yes.
Well, so you can be in the mosh pit and you basically wee yourself. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Do you want one for Christmas?
You wouldn't get that in the Royal Albert Hall, would you?
You wouldn't.
Well, you'd hope not.
No, you would definitely hope not for those prices. Definitely. Duncan, thank you very much for the moment. Time for a break. After the break, we're going to pop across to the United States. Caroline Faraday, our broadcaster and journalist extraordinaire, will join us after this break. The time, 7:20. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
And we live in a society where a woman can post something on Facebook and get 15 months in prison.
Yeah.
And she can do that with a milkshake. It was a milkshake, but it could have been acid, and walks away free. It's ludicrous.
What I hated, actually, was her walking out as if she's on a catwalk.
Yeah.
She's got her big sunglasses on. I mean, she's obviously not taking it seriously.
She's all dolled up.
She's all dolled up. And I just think for her to walk into court like that was just... I was just taking the mick, wasn't it?
I'd have done
and then her to come out, and she smirked. She didn't care. She knew she got away with it.
And
all followers.
And also, and the judge even made a point of saying that she had shown no remorse whatsoever.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Talk 724. Sharon, good morning to you. Good morning, Dr. Bull. I love your waistcoat. Well, Starmer will not hang on for much longer. He is ruining our country more and more. And if he doesn't go soon, the UK will be absolutely finished. I do think his agenda is to ruin our country. That's Sharon in Staffordshire. Happy Christmas to you. I'm asking that question, actually, this morning. How long can Starmer hang on? He does look extraordinarily uncomfortable in every single interview. He doesn't really want to talk about anything of substance and reverts to platitudes, I think, the whole time.
I think there's a bigger issue as well. He's not articulated a vision, has he?
No.
Good leaders articulate a vision, they bring people on side, they sell them what they're trying to do. So in this particular case, you want the Prime Minister to sell to the electorate of this country, whether or not they voted for him or not, this is what I'm trying to do. And we're not seeing that. What we're doing is what we're seeing this guy who's making political decisions over where money goes and telling other people simply to get stuffed.
And even his pledges get watered down. You're right. So there's nothing concrete. And I think the thing is that people can deal with a difficult time if there is a vision, if they say, this is where we're heading, this is the end goal. And actually, to be fair, Tony Blair had that. He definitely took the country with him.
Oh, I mean, they're chalk and cheese in terms of communicators. They might have been part of the same party, but, I mean, Blair was a master communicator, and he was able to explain to people what he was doing and why they should support him.
And, of course, the architect of that, one of them, Peter Mandelson, of course, we were talking about earlier. Let's move on, though. It's time for Transatlantic Talk.
Transatlantic Talk with Caroline Faraday.
Yeah! Happy Christmas, Caroline Faraday.
Oh, happy Christmas. It looks so cosy there.
Well, it is.
How lovely.
Oh, it's lovely and warm.
It's been this week in Los Angeles. It's been prime Christmas weather. It was about 80 degrees in our money.
You can go off, people, you know, yeah. 80 degrees is quite warm. What's that, 20, 25?
It was warm.
Yeah,
it was very warm.
It was warm. Otherwise, you're well and festive spirit. Good, is it, in the United States?
Praise in the festive spirit. You know me.
Yeah.
Dashing through the no.
Right, okay, fair enough. Let's talk about some American stories, shall we? Because once again, I don't really understand the way American politics works, but, you know, there was a great talk about the budget that couldn't be passed, so yet again they were threatening a federal government shutdown. That's been averted.
Yeah, it has, but I mean, talk about don't cut to the chase, because it was some proper drams, David. So, and it really showed some sort of flexing of the muscles of the incoming administration. So the way that it's funded, it is sort of a bit nonsensical. They sort of limp through these things, but they get this end of the year one. And what happens is that the job of the Speaker of the House is really to make sure that this bill passes. And they have this very strange system where they don't have bills that are single issue bills. So there's all sorts of other things in this bill when they go through, right? So that's what so they go, well, I want a bit of this and you want a bit of that, and they all have to compromise and kind of agree and then vote on it.
Right.
And they kind of got this bill together, and it was set to be voted upon and was set to pass. And then Elon Musk Elon Musk
Yes.
sent a load of tweets.
Right.
This is what brought the government to a halt and what brought this bill to a halt.
Well, of course, he's going to be very important in this new administration as DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency.
He really showed how important he's going to be as an unelected official in the next administration.
But you say that, but of course he will be there at the bequest of Donald Trump, the incoming president.
For sure, yeah. I mean, it's going to be really interesting. It was really Musk that sort of started this, and then eventually Trump kind of got on board and said, yeah, you shouldn't pass this. And one of the things, I mean, they had some issues with it, but one of the things that they had issue is that Trump is very keen to raise the debt ceiling. That's the amount of money that the government can borrow, because he doesn't want to have that there when he comes in January and have limits on some of the things, some of the tax cuts that he wants to bring in for, et cetera, et cetera. So he doesn't want that. Anyway, they didn't manage to pass that. They then had to go right the way back to the drawing board. It was a real sort of show of strength when you bear in mind that Donald Trump is still not even the president.
But you see, but I think most of us in this, most of us in this country find this an extraordinary scenes where they have to sort of sign off the budget, and that if they don't get this bill through, then essentially everything stops. And I was listening to a commentator saying that those people who work for the equivalent of the DVLA or the civil servants, they basically have a holiday, but they're still paid, but they're not paid until the new budget is then signed off.
Yeah, I mean, they generally might still go through. It depends how long it goes on for, but it covers all sorts of things. So it might cover. You might find that the air traffic controllers aren't working. It really can bring the country to a halt, that passports don't get processed, all sorts of things. But yes, we were absolutely in a situation where federal workers, and millions of them, would not have been getting paid over the holidays. And that was exactly the situation. And in fact, the lawmakers, they had this midnight deadline, and they've worked past that midnight deadline to get it passed. They're all like, we're off for our Christmas holidays, we've got it done. And then they all had to go back to Washington and kind of try and renegotiate this bill to get it through to be something that passed. And it was a lot of sort of politics being played, a lot of muscles being flexed.
And horse trading. Yeah. The votes in the end, 85-11. I was just reading here that the last government shutdown was during Trump's first term in 2019. It lasted 35 days, the longest in US history.
Yeah, so I mean, they have been there before where they get right to the brink. But yes, I think there was some sort of aim really for that to happen this time, and it hasn't. They did manage to reach an agreement, and it has got there. But it does give you a bit of an expectation on what might be to come.
Well, true. But isn't it amazing how Turkey concentrates the mind? They're like, we need to go on holiday, and so suddenly the minds are concentrated and they pass the bill.
Well, we're all there, aren't we?
Well, no, I shall be here supporting talkTV Towers throughout the Christmas period and into the new year as well. Caroline, we'll take a break and we'll come back and let's talk then about Mandelson, of course, about being appointed ambassador to the United States and the response from our American cousins. The time 7:31. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
7:34 Weekend Breakfast. Duncan Barks joins me this morning. Lovely to see
Hello.
you. Caroline Faraday joins us as well from sunny LA, where it's 80 degrees at Christmas, which is unacceptable. Now, we've been talking this morning about Lord Mandelson and being appointed as the ambassador to the United States. Keir Starmer thinks this is a brilliant idea, very clever, of course. One of the architects of New Labour. Isn't this going to be marvellous? And it will stop the trade wars going on, the proposed trade wars with the United States. I'm absolutely loving this story that Donald Trump's campaign manager has called Lord Mandelson an absolute moron.
Yeah, I mean, he sums it all up there, David, very neatly. They will just not even be sort of getting the paint dry on his new accommodation in Washington. In fact, that accommodation, that the ambassador's accommodation, where no doubt he'll be handing out a certain brand of chocolates, has just undergone a £118 million refurb. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Anyway, so yes, Lord Mandelson appointed to the role, but he's somebody who in the past has called Trump a bully, and well, whispers then obviously got to the people around Trump, and one of Trump's campaign managers today publicly called Mandelson a moron. So that does not bode well for future relations, when they're obviously hoping that relationships will be built between the two countries at such a transitional time, when Mandelson will be tasked with sort of trying to get the UK not to be part of these 10 to 20% tariffs that Trump is suggesting that he'll impose around the world. So yeah, it doesn't bode well for his relationship.
It doesn't. And Crystal Civita actually goes further to say that Mandelson should stay at home.
Look, Mandelson's been called worse, hasn't he? I'm
True.
sure he's got a thick skin after all these years in politics, but it does not bode well for what they are thinking of their relationships. And I'm sure it's a little bit of a, well, we're not very impressed.
Well, I do think, and I'll talk about this in our head-to-head later on, but I think it's an odd choice, let's just say. And in terms of the United Kingdom and the United States, it's a really important relationship that we have. But as Duncan said, and rightly so, we should be trying to do free trade deals with the rest of the world. That was the whole point of Brexit. And I mean, I don't know if there is any talk over there about the role that Nigel Farage could play. For example, Peter Mandelson said, well, there may be a role for Farage. And obviously Farage, as we know, is close to Trump, and he was there with Nick Candy and Elon Musk at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, I'm sure that will be a negotiation and a little dance they'll all be having to do between them all, and that Trump will be saying, well, I wish it was Farage. I've already got a relationship there, and that they've already got that relationship built. But I'm sure that Keir Starmer was not about to go for that. It is interesting to go for, you know, to make a choice of somebody who, yes, very definitely wanted the role, but who comes with so much previous baggage. But I suppose they assume that he has got the grit and the enthusiasm for the role. But yes, it's not a great start out the starting blocks, is it?
Not really, no. Let's move on and finally talk about Luigi Mangione. What's the latest?
So Luigi Mangione, just to refresh everyone's memory, he is the man who is accused of assassinating the CEO of United Healthcare in the street in New York. He had to be extradited back to New York City, and they managed to do that this week. So he's now there looking to stand charges. And what they're actually going to do is try and get these terrorism charges for him, because what they want to get, the prosecutors want to get, is a first-degree murder charge, which actually, David, extraordinarily would put him up for the death sentence if he's found guilty of a first-degree murder. But they would need to prove this terrorism angle of it, and that is why that he's been charged with that terrorism angle. He's been charged in the murder of the CEO. He's facing charges in New York. He's also facing some federal charges. It's quite unusual to have those running alongside each other. But anyway, facing some very serious charges. He's interesting. A little bit more has kind of been come out about him, and it's said that he targeted, and he had this notebook with him that he targeted the healthcare industry because it, in quotes, checked every box, and he had sort of a number of entries in his notebook where Mangione is alleged to have discussed the plot to kill Brian Thompson in the weeks before that crime, according to the complaint. So that's one. It's quite interesting because, you know, quite publicly there isn't a lot of empathy for the health industry, which is seen as a pretty mercenary industry over here. Yeah. You know, it's been quite an interesting case to follow.
Is there any sort of sense as to the motive here? I mean, there's been a lot of speculation about it, and it appears from the US Attorney General, this is Merrick Garland, said Mangione planned his attack for months, stalked his victim for days before murdering him. Is there, what are they reporting in the States?
Well, that's it. If they can suggest that there was this intent to sort of... you know, and they can go through his belongings. There's a lot of evidence that he had, that he allegedly had upon him when he was arrested, not least his weapon, and notes in his notebook that he definitely had this agenda. There's been a lot of speculation about what was going on with his own health and what his sufferings were with that, and what his kind of ambitions were to kind of target somebody in particular. For this particular health company who turned down a lot of complaints, there was a lot to do with that. Look, it is a bit of a mess, the health industry, and it has raised that question in the public eye. As for his motives, if they can get this kind of terrorism charge across there, that's what they're looking to do. So when Merrick Garland's talking about that, they're really keen to prosecute him on that charge so that they can get him on this first-degree murder charge. Normally something like that might be charged as second-degree murder, but they want to kind of get it across the line for this extra terrorism charge, and then they've got, you know, more sentencing options and that kind of thing.
Wow, extraordinary stuff, Caroline. Are you doing something nice for Christmas?
Yes, and actually, I'm going to say happy birthday to my lovely dad, who will turn 87
happy birthday.
Monday. So happy birthday, Papa Faraday.
Well, quite. Yes, happy birthday, Papa Faraday. And so, are you staying in LA for the holidays? Holidays? Christmas? I've gone very
I'm not
American.
hosting this year. Yeah, no, I'm not hosting this year. I'm just going to enjoy myself for the holidays.
Christmas.
All of the holidays.
It's called Christmas. I even tripped myself.
It was fun. I went to like the Christmas show, and it's so different to what goes on, you know, the school Christmas show.
Oh no,
and
it's not. Oh, sorry, that's Panto.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Hanukkah, and we wish you a Merry Kwanzaa. They'd like covered all of the options.
Right. Wow.
Happy holidays to you.
Happy Christmas.
I'm just saying it to wind you up.
Yeah, it does wind me up. Caroline, always a great pleasure. Have a very good Christmas. Thanks ever so much. That's Caroline Faraday. And Transatlantic Talk.
Transatlantic Talk with Caroline Faraday.
Right, Duncan, you're in trouble. Kate.
Excellent.
From Shrewsbury. Or Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
I think it's Shrewsbury.
Yeah. Shropshire.
Yes. There's nothing worse than a smug git who has lost weight saying, I've done it, so I can tell you. It's like ex-smokers that tell you it's so easy. It's easy when you're motivated and you need a new hit. We are only just discovering the intricacies of obesity. It is a disease. Please check your facts, Duncan. Eat less and move more is only a small part of the answer.
Well, what's the rest of the answer? Kate, is it?
Yeah.
OK.
Kate from Shrewsbury.
Well, if I'm a smug git, I'd like to know the rest of the answer.
Ooh, Kate. That's a strong defence.
Grumpy Santa.
Grumpy Santa. I'm not sure about that ball. Is it meant to be, like, hanging off?
It's a very peculiar ball, isn't it? It's swinging.
It suits you, actually.
Thank you.
Yes, Grumpy Santa. Ant, good morning to you. It's Anthony. Just want to say Merry Crimbo to all staff. Fantastic show, as always. Thank you very much for that. Lots of other messages saying... And actually, I was thinking about this very quickly, and I will ask the panel this as well. If Starmer had appointed Farage as ambassador to the United States, wouldn't that have been an amazing political point?
Yes. Would have been clever.
Strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because actually, it would be very difficult for him to then to move anywhere from that. Farage would obviously have taken that job, I would have thought.
Yes.
And then it would have sort of dampened Farage's attack on Labour.
Exactly. But he's not clever, is he?
He's not clever.
He doesn't appear to be. This lack of political nous that seems to exist right across that front bench is staggering.
Isn't it?
You've got to be Machiavellian at times.
All the time. Duncan, thank you for the moment. After the break, Tom Clayton will be here with all the latest sporting headlines. That's still to come. This is Weekend Breakfast. A very good morning to you.
Anything like this before? I mean, I don't know enough about your history, really, but, I mean, have you ever done anything like this, and was it hard finding a place to record it and put it out there?
No, I've never done anything like this at all, Mike, and to be honest, the whole thing, I basically made it from my computer at home. You know, I hired a guy to do the vocals, he had his own booth, he did that, he sent them to me. I hired a second guy to do the video, and then I did all the work in between putting it together and producing the track, just at home, basically, so it was all just done essentially in my bedroom.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Talk 747. Look at my fireplace. It's lovely, isn't it? Very Christmassy, Duncan.
Lovely fireplace.
Lovely fireplace.
Yeah.
It feels very warm.
Nice stockings as well.
Thanks very much. They're mine. Lots of messages. Peter, good morning to you. Good morning again, David. Mandelson. Dracula has risen from the grave. Slimy and hypocritical. He could create his own oil slick. Notify Just Stop Oil. Thank you, Peter. Good morning, Dr. David. This is Julie. Good morning, Julie. About your question, yes, so I'm asking this morning, how long can Starmer hang on? Lots of commentators, lots of senior Labour MPs saying Starmer won't be in position by the next election. If so, who's then going to take over? Please tell me it won't be Angela Rayner, but we were talking about West Streeting as well. Anyway, David, the question about Starmer and how long he would last, this is Julie. He will stay on until he has completely ruined the country. His idea has been to get back into the EU right from the outset. By the way, you look very dapper with your waistcoat, thank you. Hope you have a very happy Christmas. I love your programme. Julie, how kind. Thank you very much. Happy Christmas to you as well. Here's one. Sharon says, don't they know Trump only listens to Farage? I do think he should have been the US ambassador, or the UK's ambassador to the United States. Right, let's do a handbrake turn. It's time for Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
Wow.
One day I'm actually going to hear that stuff. I've never heard it before. I've seen the pictures on the screen, but I've no idea what it sounds like.
Oh, no, because you haven't got ears.
No, well...
No. You look festive.
Thank you. Well, they gave me the hat out of...
what does it say? Bar humbug?
Bar humbug. I mean, it's ironic, because I'm actually not very bar humbug. I'm kind of into...
We could probably swap then. I'm quite
you are a bit bar humbug.
Yeah, I'm grumpy Sam.
I'll give you this during the next break.
The two of you look like bookends, actually. It's like... Sorry. Yes. Ho, ho. Yes,
ho, ho, ho,
how to make friends.
Yeah, how to make friends.
Right. So, shall we start with some boxing?
Yes, we shall.
Because I saw the stare between Fury and Usyk. Yeah. I saw this stare. It's almost theatrical. Well, it is theatrical.
Well, it's pure theatrics.
Yes.
That's kind of what this whole fight is, this whole situation surrounding the fight is. 11 minutes was the stare down. It's the longest ever stare down in kind of boxing history. Not that that's the main event.
Of the stare down?
Well, there are no rules really. It's a case of, you know, when
staring.
I think they were trying to get the point across that the first one to leave is the first one to blink, and the first one who's going to crack in the fight.
So no blinking?
Well, there was blinking.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be silly without it. But no, it was kind of this situation where both fighters are so kind of into this. They had their press conference, they had their weigh-in. Tyson Fury, by the way, is 4 stone heavier than Alexander Usyk is, but Usyk is still the overwhelming favourite for the fight. And it's kind of fascinating how it's all developing, because Tyson Fury, going into this fight, has locked himself away in Malta for the last 3 months in this training camp. He's not spoken to or seen his family in that time.
Wow.
And he's come back with a massive, great big bushy beard. And the Usyk camp are not very happy because they think that it's cushioning, because in case he takes any shots to the chin during the fight.
I can't think it's that cushioning.
I mean, personally, that's why I have a beard.
Why? Cushioning?
Cushioning, just in case anyone gets physical over Christmas.
Isn't there something about this violating the boxing rules?
Having the beard?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you don't see boxers with massive beards, do you? So a lot of people are sort of saying, well, is this a tactic by them to try and throw things off? Or is he going to, you know, shave it off before the fight and have this grand thing? Because Fury himself is, in the past, he's always been clean-shaven. He's always been, well, you know, he's a bald man. He has no hair on his head. He's never had really a beard. So for him to come out with this beard as well, it's kind of like, well, why?
So who's going to win?
That's a very good question. No one's really been able to answer it this week. A lot of people are saying heart goes with Fury, head goes with Usyk. Usyk is probably pound for pound the better fighter. Tyson Fury, as I say, is many pounds heavier and has more power behind him, so he will be out for revenge. He's already said, I'm not going to say an awful lot going into this fight. There's just going to be an awful lot of hurt for Usyk. So it's live on talkSPORT. Coverage starts 7:30. We've got the fight. We think it's going to be around sort of the 10-11 sort of time zone, if you will. It's late on in Saudi Arabia's day, which is where, of course, it's being held, because every sporting event these days has to be held in Saudi Arabia.
Of course it does.
Of course it does. So looking forward to...
And are you a fan, Duncan?
Well, the sport or boxing?
Boxing.
I don't mind boxing.
It's a bit barbaric.
Yeah, it is. I worked in Liverpool for a couple of years, and the boxing scene is quite big in Liverpool.
Right.
So, you know, I can get engaged. I mean, I might stay up and watch it later or listen to it on talkSPORT, if not only to find out whether or not he's kept his beard.
Yeah, well, quite. I mean, at school, I had to do boxing. It was compulsory.
So did I.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you? I've
in
never
the
met
gym.
anyone else.
In the gym.
Yeah, I mean, it was so barbaric.
Yeah.
Wow. Didn't do me any harm.
No, do I think it should still be taught? Probably not, but actually I'd be lying if I said I didn't use what I learned a couple of times later in life.
I mean, there's a lot of discipline, isn't there?
Yeah,
it's
about the footwork, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's about maintaining everything in that sense. We just out of school by the time I got to it, but we played much more safer and less barbaric sports, such as we played less barbaric sports such as rugby, things like that.
Okay, talking of which, this is a great story. English rugby fans are too polite, apparently.
Yeah, this is for an interview that Finn Russell, the Scotland fly half, has done with the Times. He's spoken about lots of different things and gone into lots of details, but he was talking about you know, how the darts is kind of very prevalent this week, and it's lots of people are talking about the crowd at Alexandra Palace and how it's very raucous and how it's very sort of, everyone's trying to put everyone off. And Finn Russell says, well, maybe English rugby could do with a bit of that. There's no needle. It's kind of like it's a group of people who kind of gather around and, yeah, very good.
But isn't that the point of rugby? I think it's rather lovely. The atmosphere at rugby is great. It's much more family friendly.
Yeah.
It's far jollier. It's more jovial.
But then it is in France. But then he has a situation where Finn Russell was playing for Racing 92 in Paris not so long ago. He had a situation where he was lining up to take a conversion by the touchline, and someone from the crowd shouted over to him that he was fat, and he ended up having a conversation with him during the rest of the game. And that's the kind of thing that I think is brilliant, that you can get away with it. You know, I'm not talking about calling people, you know, names and, you know, being offensive, but I'm talking about just having a bit more of an atmosphere, a bit more of an explosion going into it.
There is a different vibe with the fans, though, isn't there?
Definitely.
You know, I know people who have been to see rugby games at Twickenham, and, you know, the rival fans, they kind of like share a beer with them and they say hello and stuff. You don't get that in
good nature
in the same way, do you?
Well, football has to be segregated.
Which is a travesty, actually.
Yeah, it's silly. I mean, I went to a game a couple of weeks ago, Leeds against Millwall, which is a bit tasty anyway. But no, we had to completely avoid anywhere that the Millwall fans were going to be. So we were.
That's the question, isn't it? There's football hooliganism. You don't get rugby.
Yeah.
No, not at all. That's
you still get fighting in the stands, and you still get sort of people disagreeing, which, you know, unfortunately is an inevitable fact of sport. You are going to get these things.
Well, yes, I
generally
suppose
speaking,
emotion runs high.
The way that it's put across is things are generally a bit more vanilla.
Yes. Well, vanilla, I'm not sure that's right. Good-natured.
Good-natured.
Yes. Here's a question for you. Why is darts so popular?
Darts is popular because it's fantastic.
Is it?
Yes.
But I watch these people who are standing about 3 miles back, who obviously can't see anything. I mean, I know you've got screens and everything, but why would you do that?
But the atmosphere is fantastic.
Is it?
It's great. I've been to the darts before a while ago. Went to the Premier League in Leeds. The atmosphere is fantastic. I mean, granted, OK, you need to take a couple of days off work to recover from it afterwards. But, no, I mean, the whole thing is... It's a spectacle. Ultimately, darts started. It's a pub game where, you know, it became professionalised, and, you know, the pub culture almost carried over with it. Where, unlike in rugby, where everything is good-natured, it's still like a bit of a bar fight in the background.
I'll tell you what I've noticed about darts. So I drink in a pub called the Eastgate in Chichester in West Sussex. Well, you know, I'm a sociable bloke.
He's on the payroll as well, by the sound of it.
It's more and more young people are playing darts.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. You've got guys in there, guys and girls, 18, 19, 20 years of age, who on a Sunday night in this pub will be playing darts.
So is that the Luke Littler effect?
Yeah.
I think Luke Littler is a symptom of that. I think that's been going on for a lot longer. Since darts became televised and it became a grand event with the World Championships at the Alexandra Palace. This has probably been the last sort of 15 years or so. It has become, you know, when I was, you know, in my mid-teens, we would gather around over the Christmas period during our school break and we'd sit and watch the darts. And that's what we do. We wouldn't go out and do anything bad in society. We'd go and do good things.
Well, I mean, just going back to my youth, when we first went to the pub, we would all play darts.
Yeah, exactly.
And it kind of fell out of favour, didn't it?
But then you think about it as well. Snooker's having a bit of a resurgence. Darts is having people, you know, don't necessarily always want to go and run around a cold, muddy field playing football or rugby. People want to go and play darts, and especially in the winter when it's like it is at the moment. You want to get into a pub, you want to go throw a couple of darts, have a couple of pints, and have a good time.
Defo.
Sounds great to me. Tom,
my idea of a good afternoon.
Well, we're quite right. Tom, thanks ever so much. Wishing you a very happy Christmas.
Thank you, and to you too.
Thank you. That was, of course, Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
I'm asking, how long can Keir Starmer hang on? Are there going to be changes in number 10? Graham Pack, good morning. Graham in Bushy, good morning to you. Starmer could be out by next Christmas. He probably will be living in Lord Alley's penthouse flat, as his wife will have kicked him out as well. That's a bit tasty.
Bit saucy.
Yes. David, this is Brian. Brian Goodwin, good morning to you. Regarding Starmer admitting he has done nothing wrong, there's a saying, he has made no mistakes. The person I think they're paraphrasing, he who says he has made no mistakes has made nothing. Right. I.e., he hasn't done anything. So therefore he hasn't... Well, actually, he's done an awful lot.
He's done a lot, but it comes back to what we were talking about earlier this hour. What's the vision?
Correct.
Where's the vision? Where's
There is
the
no
leadership?
vision. This is interesting and inflammatory. Mick, good morning to you. One of our regulars here. Wes Streeting will not be the next Labour leader unless he finds a new constituency, because he will be voted out by the Muslim vote.
Yeah, I think his majority's a couple of hundred, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So that's interesting as well. You said to me before we came on air that you thought that the natural successor would be Streeting.
Yes, I think at the moment, well, look, anyone in that cabinet will think that they could be Prime Minister, because that's how these people think. You know, it's endemic across all political parties. Oh, I could do a better job, and I'm sure they look at themselves in their bathroom mirrors going, yes, I could be Prime Minister. I think the two obvious contenders, though, on either side of the party, you've got Wes Streeting, as you mentioned, who's a little bit more Blairite and centrist, and then on the other side you've got Angela Rayner, who is more soft left.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating, and we'll see what happens next. Please tell me it's not Angela Rayner. That's all I ask. That's all I ask.
Well, part of me would find that quite amusing. not for the fate of the country,
well,
just for
certainly
lulz.
her dress sense, I do. Duncan, thank you ever so much for coming in. I wish you a very happy Christmas. Try to be less bar humbug.
I'll do my best, and we'll see you in the new year.
Yes, look forward to it.
Marvellous.
Thank you ever so much, Duncan. Time for a break. After the break, I'm going to be talking to Vincent Moss, who's the former political editor at the Sunday Mirror. I'm going to be talking about Starmer being more unpopular after 5 months than any other Prime Minister in over 40 years.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's just after 8 o'clock on Saturday, December the 21st. Look, very festive indeed. I've got my tree, my fire, really feeling in the mood. Thank you very much for your company this morning. I hope you're very well and preparing for Christmas. Now, I have some great news for you, as you would expect. It's Don't Make Your Bed Day. Yes, that's right. The day was originally requested by a 5th grader in New Jersey. She wrote to Congress requesting a day off from making her bed, which I think is very enterprising indeed. Now, this holiday encourages you to turn your back on those repetitive tasks and to feel a little bit rebellious.
I just wanna lay in my bed.
Oh, I love to lay in my bed. 2:20 starts. They are pretty tough. Also today, talking about the change of the days and the nights. It's the winter solstice today. It's an astronomical phenomenon that sees the northern hemisphere have its longest night and its shortest day of the year. Thank goodness for that. And there are just 4 sleeps to go until Christmas. That means there are 3 days left to shop before Christmas. Panic!
Oh, have you been good this year?
No, I have not. Right, let's start today's show.
Today's fascinating facts.
So, I've got a few different ones. Today's fascinating facts. On this day in 1620, the Pilgrim Fathers arrived at Plymouth Rock. Massachusetts, aboard the Mayflower, passengers and crew increased to 103. Why? Because 2 people were born on the voyage from Plymouth in England. They'd originally set sail from Southampton, which took place on the 5th of August, but they were beset with problems. On this day in 1846, Robert Liston, Scottish surgeon, used anaesthetic ether for the first time in a British operation. It was performed at University College down the road from here in London to perform an amputation of a leg. He was known, Liston, as the fastest knife in the West End. The reason for that is because speed was essential. It reduced pain and the patient was more likely to survive as a result. And on this day in 2020, the death, aged 103, of RAF Spitfire woman Eleanor Wadsworth. She was the last surviving of about 165 women to have taken on the task of transporting aircraft to the front lines during World War II. The women operated out of White Waltham in Berkshire. Amazingly, they flew without instruments, flying instructions, or radios. What women they were. And those are today's fascinating facts.
Yo, David Paul's breakfast show, spreading cheer with Tom, Dave, Tommy, and Titus too. Rocking those Christmas hats, look at our crew.
Wow. I don't know quite what to say to that. Thanks very much, Dave. That really is quite something, keep all of your messages coming in. I'm asking, how long can Starmer hang on? There's a lot of talk from senior Labour MPs that actually Starmer may well be out, and of course they're all vying for position. You've got Angela Rainey, you've got Wes Streeting, all of whom are sort of looking to improve their profile. Talking of which, actually, in the papers this morning, Wes Streeting is in the paper. Here we are, the Mirror. And actually, in a minute, I'm going to be talking to Vincent Moss, who used to write for this paper. Return of the Family Doctor. This is the big headline this morning. Wes Streeting, according to the paper, which is rather biased, will take the first major steps to fix the crisis engulfing GPs. 889 million quid they're throwing at this. They say they're going to end the 8 a.m. scramble that we all know so well. He is also bringing in pledges or incentives for GPs to make sure that you can see the same doctor. I don't understand how this will work because you can't magic up GPs out of thin air, but I do welcome this. They are actually going to slash the 76 performance targets imposed on family doctors to 44. And try to cut down the bureaucracy, which is very welcome indeed. The front page of the Daily Mail, if you are waking up this morning, this is a terrible story, actually, that has happened. Carnage at the Christmas market. Horror as car ploughs into German crowd in a deliberate attack, killing 11 people, injuring up to 80. This is horrifying scenes in Magdeburg, 100 miles west of Berlin. We spoke about that as well. Rachel Reeves is at the front page of The Guardian this morning. I won't gaslight, whatever that is meant to mean, voters on the economy. Rachel Reeves insists she won't gaslight working people over her plans to turn round the economy as she launches a scathing attack over Reform UK, saying Nigel Farage doesn't have a clue. So we were talking about this earlier. The fact is that actually it seems that Rachel Reeves is rather rattled by what is going on. So that is the front page of The Guardian. Lots more other front pages as well this morning. Let's go and get the latest on the political situation. I'm delighted now to be joined by Vincent Moss, who's former political editor at the Sunday Mirror. Good morning to you, Vincent.
Good morning, David, and happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas to you too. I don't really know where to start with this, but let's just talk about the political situation. I want to just start with Keir Starmer, if I may. Keir Starmer is more unpopular after 5 months in Downing Street than any other Prime Minister since the late 1970s. This was done earlier in the week. 61% of voters were dissatisfied with Keir Starmer's performance. Now, you are, in a former life, previously, I don't know whether you still are, a Labour man. Are you disappointed?
Well, it's been a very inauspicious start, hasn't it, with the winter fuel payments row, the farmers being unhappy, the economy not lifting as much as people would hope, very little action in terms of, not action has been there, but very little sort of results in terms of tackling the small boats crisis. So it's not been the best of starts, has it?
No, but also, Vincent, he's stolen the money off the pensioners, the inheritance tax on the farms, all of this, just the WASPy women. They campaigned with the WASPy women. Rachel Reeves campaigned with the WASPy women, and then they turned their backs on them. I mean, what sort of message is that sending out?
It's difficult. The WASPy women you rightly highlight over pensions was a very difficult area because many Labour MPs were photographed supporting them. And I think Keir Starmer never quite actually came out and said he would find the money for them. But that's been lost in all of this. And yes, you're right. It's been a terrible, terrible start. And Labour can hope that after Christmas things can only get better. It's very difficult time. One thing I would say on the poll, though, is do you know that he's literally the most unpopular Prime Minister, as you've highlighted, in the last 40 years. And, of course, who was the last Prime Minister that was this unpopular? And that was Margaret Thatcher. Yeah. Turned out too badly for her.
Well, that's true, but the difference is that Margaret Thatcher had a vision for this country. Keir Starmer does not have a vision.
Well, I think the challenge is there's only two things that will decide his and Labour's fate. Can Labour turn the economy around, looking very hard at the moment, and can they solve what seems a huge problem by most people with migration, both illegal and legal migration? And there's a long way till the next election, looking like 2029, and Labour's not very good at changing leaders in the same way the Conservatives and other parties are if they're not doing well. I think the party will make a decision in 2028, look at where they are 12 months out from the election. If things aren't looking good, I think they may change the leader then, like all sensible political parties would do. I don't get any huge sense that will happen now. But you look at you're in a position now where potentially Labour and the Conservatives and Reform are all polling in about the mid-20s. Very different from when Labour were before the election, when they were polling about 40%.
Very true indeed. I also find it odd, and I don't know what your thoughts are. Keir Starmer says, and this again was earlier in the week, he has no regrets about the decisions he's made in the past 6 months. I mentioned winter fuel. I mentioned the farmers, the inheritance tax there. You've also got the VAT on private schools halfway through the year, which I think is pretty abhorrent. And then, of course, inflation, because Rachel Reeves has spent all this cash. Inflation has gone up to 2.6%, which is going to hit people in the pocket because of their mortgages. Why wouldn't you regret some of that?
Well, I think in politics you just can't say that, can you? You can't say I got it wrong. I got it wrong.
Why
it's
not?
Not a phrase you hear very often.
But hang on a minute. Wouldn't that be refreshing if a politician said, look, on reflection, I got this wrong, I'm going to change it?
Absolutely, and I just don't think you're going to hear it because that ends up in everybody else's election leaflet saying, why vote for this person? He's already admitted he got it wrong. It's a very difficult challenge. It's been a terrible start for all the reasons you rightly outline. And I just think that Labour is such a low position in many ways. They will be hoping things can only get better. And the key thing is that old song title.
Well, I was going to say, yes, Tony Blair. That was quite good for Tony Blair, wasn't it?
Yes, the thing that will have to change is the economy. There's a few signs. There was a little crumb of comfort at Rachel Reeves last week where the borrowing came in lower than expected. I mean, because there's more in tax receipts. People quickly got rid of their assets because they were worried about a raid on capital gains tax. So if the economy starts to lift next year, let's see what winter sales are like. People going out and consuming and buying a lot of Christmas presents. Who knows? But without the economy lifting and without some change on immigration, I think Labour will be in real trouble.
Well, I mean, you mentioned a glimmer of hope there. Yes, people are disposing of assets because they're so worried the government's going to come after them. As I said, inflation has gone up. Rachel Reeves borrowing all this money as well. We're in a period of stagflation. That is what people are worried about. When a new government comes in, you need to inspire optimism and confidence, and the markets need to be behind you. That is not where they are.
No, it's a huge challenge, but without sounding a bit like Rachel Reeves, where's the money? I mean, the problem that the government's got is the much fabled black hole.
But Vincent, they've got the money to pay the union paymasters when they want that money.
Well, yes, there was a very much criticised payment to the train drivers to get the train strikes over, which seems to have worked. Some people criticised the amount of money that's gone to teachers and other public sector workers. Labour felt it had to do that. Let's see what they do next. There's some hard choices coming out. There's going to be huge pressure from the incoming President Trump to raise our defence spending. Where's that money going to come from? More money for Ukraine, more money for all of these areas. The trouble is with the balance sheet at the moment, you highlight Wes Streeting's determination to improve the GP system, a lot of money needed there, is we can all see a lot on the spend side. We know a lot of tax came in, but it's hugely difficult. I don't see how any other political party, Reform included, can do things very different from where they are now. At the end of the day,
the thing I would throw back at you is that the Labour Party seems to have one lever, and that is to throw money at a problem, and that just makes an expensive problem. What you need, and I'm using this word advisedly, is you need to reform it. When you spend money on train drivers or on any of these public servants, you have to ask for changes in productivity or working practices, and that is where I think the government goes wrong time and time again.
I think that's a very valid criticism on the train drivers, is it wasn't linked to reform in that case. They wanted the strikes over. Let's see where we go on the NHS. This government is pinning a lot of its hopes to the advance of AI, whether that's in medicine. I mean, if you look at trains and transport, I mean, in an ideal world, they would see trains being driven by AI. You would have driverless trains, potentially driverless buses. These are all things being tried. And as you know very well in the medical area, if you can get AI improvements there and you can join up those antiquated systems of how people's medical records are kept, there are potentially massive savings, but we're a long way off that.
Yeah, I mean, but also that's not going to go down well with the union paymasters, is it, if you've got an AI train?
Well, this is the challenge. This is the challenge about how Labour balances its arguments for reform, using AI, using tech, and dealing against people who've got a vested interest in those things not happening. And yes, that's certainly the case. We see it on safety issues. I mean, even when they want to take guards off trains, for example, and you just have a single operator on trains, that's been very heavily resisted by train drivers. So yes, it's that balance of, can Labour drive through what it says is its reform agenda against those vested interests and what Michael Gove famously used to call the blob, and others who are against it. Same goes for planning and house building, doesn't it? Everybody wants new homes, nobody wants them in their own backyard.
Yeah. Let's talk about Lord Mandelson, of course, being made, or was set to be made, the British ambassador to the US. Keir Starmer, I think there's real nervousness in Downing Street about the relationship with Trump, not least because David Lammy was so rude, calling him, a neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath. You've got... I mean, this is what I find very odd. Lord Mandelson also hasn't exactly been very kind about Trump. He called him a danger to the world and little short of a white nationalist and racist. Now, this news has not... I mean, Starmer obviously thought this was a great appointment. This news has not been greeted with great joy over the pond. Donald Trump's campaign manager has called Lord Mandelson an absolute moron and says he should stay home. Another terrible appointment, in my humble opinion.
Well, you don't have to dig very far to find Labour and other politicians that have been rude at various points about Donald Trump, and he's been rude about most world leaders at various points too. I think a lot of that gets forgotten. The key thing is he the right person to drive forward US-UK relations, drive forward trade, and get us into a better place? Now, this is a very unpopular opinion. I hold many of them, but this is an extremely unpopular one. I think Lord Mandelson was in the past a very competent minister and could be very good at this job. I hear the argument for putting somebody in like Nigel Farage, who would have doubtless had a brilliant relationship, still has, with the incoming US president. But at the end of the day, what do we want out of the relationship? We want a good UK, good US relationship, and we want to drive forward trade deals. Now, Mandelson is somebody that does have that business experience. He has been a former trade minister, and let's hope it works. I'm also not sure, it had to be a Labour person. You can't really put in somebody from another party. Who else would there be on the Labour benches who would have been better suited to the job? I'm not sure there was a huge queue of viable candidates. Let's see how Peter Mandelson does. I know he's not the most popular man. I mean, Prescott famously likened him to a crab. He's got a huge number of critics even within the Labour Party. But, I mean, I'm for all of these people who says, let's give him a chance, let's see how he does.
It will certainly be interesting. So just going back to Keir Starmer then, and if the knives are out for Keir Starmer, and I still think he is so robotic, he can't think on his feet. We were talking earlier, Duncan and I were talking earlier about the fact that there's no kind of optimism, there's no plan, no vision, and that is what is desperately lacking. Who would be likely to take over?
Well, that's a very good question. It's funny, we were just talking about Peter Mandelson. There was a point when Keir Starmer wasn't doing very well before the election, where Wes Streeting would be very much a choice of Peter Mandelson's this world, the Blairite wing, if you like, whereas Angela Rayner hugely popular with certain parts of the party. I think they'd be two very strong candidates. Rachel Reeves, funnily enough, as Chancellor, has always said she never wants the top job. Very unusual. Most Chancellors usually do want the top job.
Do you believe her?
Yeah, I think I probably do. She's always said that, and she's stuck to that. And I think that she thinks her skill set is better suited to being in charge of the money. I think, but certainly Angela Rayner would have a go. I think you would certainly see a run from Wes Streeting if that happened. And I think there would be a caucus on the left who would want somebody who was sort of, if you like, even more left-wing than Angela Rayner, if you like, the sort of small Corbynite rump that's still in the party, but very active in the community and out in the wider country. So they might want to have another go with somebody like Rebecca Long-Bailey or a champion of the left.
Interesting. Really good to talk to you, Vincent. That's Vincent Moss. Vincent, have a very happy Christmas. Vincent Moss, their former political editor at the Sunday Mirror. We'll take a break now. Just very quickly, good morning. Theresa Humphrey, good morning to you. Could someone please explain to me, why is it that members of the House of Lords get over £300 for turning up plus expenses? It's tax-free. Surely this is classed as income. I turn up for work for less. I have to pay tax. How is this fair? And those are already very wealthy people. Not necessarily. Surely Rachel from accounts is missing out on a way to fill the black hole they keep telling us about. My understanding is that they get that attendance fee of £300, but it can't be tax-free. But feel free to correct me on that. Keep all of those messages coming in. How long can Starmer hang on? Who are the runners and riders? We were talking about Wes Streeting. Is he in the wings trying to take over as Labour leader? Who else could it be? Angela Rayner, possibly. Rachel Reeves, as you heard, doesn't want to be Labour leader. Let me know your thoughts on all of that, please. 0344 499 1000. Calls charged at the national rate. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can also message us on X at talkTV. After the break, it's our head-to-head. Joining me this morning, Rory Boyle, podcaster and commentator, and Gawain Towler, who's a Westminster comms veteran. He'll love that. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Delivering. What does he mean?
Yeah, I mean, you speak privately to senior figures in the government and they will admit, for instance, that the winter fuel payment announcement certainly could have been handled more differently, and it probably was a bad choice in the first place. I mean, that was within days of entering government. He set down a marker that they were taking winter fuel payments of millions of pensioners, and they've never really recovered from that. They've been on the back foot ever since. So there's been numerous missteps, I think, since they came to power.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:23, our Christmas scene here, David. This is Stuart. Regarding shortage of money and increasing taxes, don't forget Labour is spending lots of money on net zero. I know. Third world countries to achieve net zero as well. A fool's errand, in my humble opinion. Lots of other messages are coming in. Gary Mitchell, David, if you want to have a great relationship with any country, then surely, before you appoint your ambassador, you would run the name past the administration that he or she is going to have to work with. The only logical conclusion one can draw from the appointment of such an unsuitable candidate as Peter Mandelson to that role in Washington is that our own government is trying to sabotage our relationship with the US in an attempt to inevitably force the UK into an ever increasing and closer relationship with the EU. That's a brilliant message. On that note, let's ask the panel. It's time for Head to Head.
Head to Head.
Well, joining me this morning, Rory Boyle, who's a podcaster and commentator, and Gawain Towler, Westminster Comms veteran, it says here, Gawain. Veteran. I think it means that you've actually been there a long time, not that you are a veteran.
No, I think it's both.
Oh, is it? Good morning. Very festive.
I'm loving the waistcoat.
Thank you very much. It's slightly outrageous. I've got another one for tomorrow as well.
I'm sure you do.
Oh, I really do.
Sure you do.
That's a nice jumper as well.
It's ever subtle.
I saw another one that you...
Yes, I decided I can't.
I decided
I just can't.
I did mention that the one you were planning to wear would not be appropriate.
Oh, tell me more about this.
It mentioned the EU.
Okay, say no more.
No,
Yes.
it's in very positive terms. It's a pro-EU jumper.
Yes, I know. That's why you couldn't wear it.
Possibly wear it. My daughter gave it to me.
Fair enough.
How very funny. Should we just... so that was quite interesting, that message about our ambassador. So this...
I think Mandelson's a good idea.
All right. Why?
Because he's very good at talking to people. He gets things done. Now, look, I don't agree with his politics, but this is a Labour government. I don't expect them to put somebody in post who is somebody who I agree with their politics, but he is somebody who is charming.
I mean, he's a veteran. I mean,
he knows
really
what he's
veteran.
doing. And if you want to get somebody from the current Labour... Oh, yes,
that's not a word I would use.
Allogenous, other people say, but charming is...
He wasn't that charming when I've worked with him.
I've met him on a number of occasions. We've got on very well. He is very good at that side of things. And this is a diplomatic post.
It is.
This is not... we're not sending a general. And so somebody who will be able to get on... OK, they've got some from the States having a go at him, fine. But if you want... things to improve, and the fact is, yes, he's said these rude things in the past, but everybody said rude things about pretty much everybody if you go down their Twitter feed, so frankly I don't worry about that. Trump is a bigger man,
yes,
and can cope. He's already allowed David Lammy to break bread with him. For goodness sake, he's a much bigger man than most people over here believe. No, I think he has the ability, he has the talent. He's not somebody that I would put on the payroll, but I'm not Keir Starmer.
No.
And we have to accept that we've got a Labour government, whether we like it or not.
Are we not, Rory, concerned that this is a man who called Trump a danger to the world? He also called him a white nationalist and racist. Now, the thing I would say about Peter Mandelson is he is a brilliant politician. He was one of the architects of New Labour. He's been around the block. Maybe Gawain is right. Maybe he is a clever appointment. He's certainly got intellectual rigour.
No, we're not concerned about those statements because he was right about those things. Trump is a racist and he's dangerous.
I don't think he did do those things. However,
Right, but lots of people would disagree with that.
Well, that's fine. They're allowed to disagree, but the facts...
And also, there's no evidence that he is actually a racist. Where did you get that? You can't think it. You have to have fact.
Well, the fact that I have in my back pocket is that he had 4 congresswomen of colour, 3 of whom were American-born, and he told them to go back to where they came from. That is a racist statement. If you look at the Charlottesville riots, you look at his reaction to that, saying they're good people on both sides.
Very, very partial editing of those, by the way.
I mean,
very partial.
But that's not something...
He wasn't talking about the people in the riots. He was talking about
let's just move on to the point that I'm trying to make here. Just in terms of that, this is an extraordinarily important relationship, the United Kingdom and the United States. The ambassador that we send is a pivotal part of that. Is he the right person?
Well, look, I'm obviously not pro-Trump, but I actually have to agree that Trump is above all of this slagging off. And basically everybody has slagged off Trump. We were just saying before we came on air, if you go down anyone's Twitter timeline, you will find a tweet or you'll find a statement that, you know, is controversial. We can't base all of our appointments on that or we'd never get anywhere.
Also, we're not living in the 19th century.
No.
Therefore, the ambassador plenipotentiary in Washington is no longer the governor of his world. He doesn't have... He is... there's these amazing things called telephones and emails. Instructions come much quicker these days. You don't have to wait for the Titanic to sink across the
but there was something quite interesting he said about, because obviously there's a lot of discussion about do we need to be closer to the US or the EU, and Mandelson said this is about trying to have your cake and eat it. So at least he understands that
his comments since Trump's election have been the most pacific of any senior Labour figure.
I would agree.
He understands. He's even been polite about Farage, and you can hardly say that's something you'd expect from Peter Mandelson.
That's true.
Mandelson has, some would call it dishonesty, others would call it flexibility.
Let's, on the Farage point, I find it fascinating. He suggested, this is Mandelson, a friend of Nigel Farage, who, as we know, is a friend of the president-elect, could act as a bridge between Downing Street and the White House next year. I would totally agree. We saw Nick Candy, we saw Nigel, we saw Elon Musk there at Mar-a-Lago. Nigel Farage is in a really unusual position of having Trump's ear. And if Mandelson is smart, using Nigel Farage is a clever idea.
I agree. Look, I'm not a fan of Trump. I'm not a fan of Musk. I'm not a fan of Farage. But frankly...
It's your perfect dinner party.
All you need to do now is add, I don't know, one of the Tories into the mix, and it's my dream. But having said... yeah, there you go. Having said all of that, though...
She's actually very nice.
I don't know about that. We'll move swiftly on. And what I will say is, yes, even though I'm not a fan of all of those people, Trump is the president-elect. And we know for a fact he has a great relationship with Farage. So, yes, that can only help. If we want the 4 years of the US presidency to be smooth for the UK, we need to be strategic. So... you've got to look at how the cookies crumbled and then try and make the best decisions from there.
Statesmanship is not a bad thing.
No.
Well, let me just... would it have been possible for Starmer to appoint Nigel Farage as US ambassador? And
possible.
But if he'd done that, wouldn't that have been brilliant politics? Because Nigel Farage couldn't turn that down. It would be too good a job to turn down. It would mute him in many ways. Wouldn't that have been a clever move?
I mean, if you wanted to be really clever with Farage, you'd have given him a peerage in 2016.
Well, of course you would have done,
in
yeah,
2016.
absolutely.
That would have muted him in 2016, and the rest would not have happened.
But they couldn't bring themselves to do that.
They couldn't do that because they're not statesmen. Whereas Starmer seems to be showing a lot more statesmanship than the Tories have managed in the last 14 years.
How long's he got?
He's our Prime Minister. He's got an 80-seat majority.
Yeah, but how long's he got in the party?
He's going to be Prime Minister going forward, I think, at least 2-3 years. Oh, he'll last longer than Kemi Badenoch will last as the Tory leader.
I agree that he's got a lot longer to last. I think there's a lot of dramatisation in the press about the last 6 months. No, it has been far from perfect for Labour. We all know that, right? But...
far from perfect. That's a brilliant understatement.
But hear me out on this. I'm just saying, yes, it has not been a good time for the Labour Party. It's irrefutable, you know, that's the case. But I also think that we're 6 months in. If the Tories hung on for as long as they did, all the ruin they caused, Starmer's got a lot longer.
It feels like a very long 6 months.
It does.
It's going to be a very long 5 years.
And on that note, and happy Christmas to all of you. Let's take a break. After the break, we'll return with our head-to-head with Rory Boyle and Gawain Towler. Don't go anywhere. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're in the middle of Head to Head with Rory Boyle, podcaster and commentator, and a veteran, Gawain Taylor, Westminster Commons veteran. Good morning.
Every time you say that, it makes you laugh, doesn't it?
No, it does. It really does make me laugh. Let's talk about this story, which is front page of The Guardian this morning. Rachel Reeves says, I won't gaslight voters over the economy. I hate that word. She says she won't gaslight working people over her plans to turn around the economy. And look, this is really interesting, and we're talking about Nigel Farage again. It's interesting, isn't it, how often he's mentioned. She launched a scathing attack over Reform UK not having a clue. So she's very much on the back foot here. She is the one, and I tweeted this week, you know, she says she's disappointed about inflation going up. Well, I mean, you are actually in charge. So in my humble view,
I think she's disappointed with the country.
She's disappointed with herself, I think.
No, she's never disappointed with herself.
No. So just in terms of that, why is she attacking Nigel Farage?
Well, I don't know, but this is the thing. So say you've got a Christmas movie that you want to watch. Some people, it might be The Holiday, others it might be Elf. Let's scrap that. Let's see them debate on Christmas Day now. Wouldn't that be good viewing?
Oh, no.
Come on, we all want to see that.
In these comments, she basically says, I wouldn't have an argument with him, a debate with him. Fine. Put it on.
Let's do it.
Pay-per-view. You could probably pay for the climate change.
So I know these.
You probably could.
I know these comments have been. Well, they've not. They've
by
been
the way,
reported.
she doesn't gaslight like the country. That's what she's claiming. So what on earth did she do for the WASPy women?
Well, exactly.
When she campaigned with her mother as shadow pensions minister.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gaslighting, if there is such a thing.
That's happened a lot, though, you know, in terms of, OK, there's, let's say, a party that aren't the government. They support a particular movement or policy. Then they become the government. Yes. And then they realise, actually, we can't support this. So
why not?
Well, this is the thing. I don't think Reeves knows what she's doing financially.
Billions on climate change abroad.
So why, if you have principle and you campaign with your mother and you say, this is what I believe in, then surely you have a duty of care to implement it.
You totally do, and it totally is gaslighting. And listen, I wish that I had a Santa's list with me, but what I actually have is a list of things that I wish Rachel Reeves had done financially, or things she could do.
You have a list.
So, listen...
Things that won't be missed.
The winter fuel allowance, we've spoken about that loads. I don't want to hammer on about that too much, but I still think that could have been means tested, so wealthy pensioners lost the allowance.
Well, the argument against that was that it's too expensive to do that, and so it would be easier actually just to give it universally.
Well, then let's go with that. I think also there could be more job programmes, help people get back into work. That would definitely cut some benefits bills. I know there's been a lot about this 5% efficiency savings to cut national aid budgets, I think would really help there. I don't know why we're not looking at that in greater detail and seeing what we could cut. Reform have some ideas about that. Don't know about those. It's a long time until Reform will have the power to actually do that. And, you know, I'm not big on taxes.
In a year and a half.
Well, listen, I'm not big on taxes going up as well either. I don't think many of us are, but I am pro some more wealth taxes. So look, all I'm saying is on all of the above is, to answer your question, Rachel Reeves is gaslighting these people. I don't think she knows what she's doing financially, and the WASPy women...
That's interesting. You don't think she does?
No, I don't think she knows what she's doing, and I think... When it comes to the WASPy women, I'll let you in here in 1 second, but when it comes to the WASPy women, do you think there's some entitlement there? I do think some of them were in a very good financial position and had plenty of notice as to what was going to happen. But yes, I agree.
Well, but they also changed the... Well, that may be true, but they changed the way it was implemented. They brought it forward in terms of the implementation. Those WASPy women feel let down. Now, but I go back to that point, which is that if you campaign on something and you believe in something, you follow that through. I don't care.
I quite agree, but I'll go back to your other comment. Why did they keep on mentioning Farage? There's a classic thing. And yesterday on Politico, the Europe minister went to the European Parliament to talk to them about giving away our hard-won freedoms and sovereignty, and he actually said to them that I'd like to give you more, but I can't because Farage is breathing down our neck back home. And so Labour, this is why, they see Farage as a threat, so they're attacking him. It makes perfect sense. And for her to say, for Rachel from accounts, or actually from customer service, for her to say that a bloke who has run his own business, who worked in the city, has built up a team, almost all of whom are businessmen and women, if you look at that, he's got more economic and financial experience in his team than the entire front bench. And there's only 5 of them.
Well, and that's a very good point, isn't it? Actually, Nigel Farage has been on the coalface. He has been a trader in the city. He understands finance. Rachel from accounts doesn't.
Are we being a bit facetious by calling her Rachel from accounts?
Yes,
Come
absolutely.
on now, guys.
But she deserves
But it just feels that she's not on top of her brief.
Yeah.
Everyone you speak to says you see business confidence declining. You're seeing people being laid off because of national employers' national insurance, contributions. She's not in control.
But do we think that Nigel Farage is the person who's going to fix everything? And
no, he's not Moses, is he? He's not the Messiah.
Certainly not.
He's a very naughty boy.
But well, that too. However, he does have far more. The idea that Rachel wants to debate Nigel on finance and international finance and the economy. Oh, bring it on! I mean, he would tear her ideas limb from limb. The very idea that somebody who somewhat exaggerated their economic CV is capable of dealing with it. I've never met anybody in my life who is able to synthesise and comprehend information so rapidly and turn it into language that is comprehensible to the ordinary person as Farage. He's very, very good at that. Whereas the Death Watch beetle of the economy that is Rachel Reeves seems to struggle, seems to trip. And then, I mean, if she's backed up by Starmer, he clearly doesn't have a clue about the economy economics. So who do they have? How many people on their front bench has ever run a business, has ever had payroll, has ever been responsible for people's lives?
It is extraordinary, isn't it? Just the lack of experience on that front bench.
Yeah,
or in anything.
It's pretty worrying, and I don't like all the infighting that there's been over the last 6 months. I think that's been a really bad look, and frankly,
that's politics.
That's politics. But I think that in the first 6 months, I thought they would all be a lot more positive, and there'd be more camaraderie around.
Isn't that? And that's the nub of this, and we touched on this morning. That when Blair came in, there was vision.
Yeah.
There was optimism, and I think that was pretty much even those people who normally tribally would vote Tory felt, well, maybe this is a turning point. No one feels that currently.
No, but I also think a lot of people were really voting anti-Tory as opposed to pro-Labour.
Or not voting at all.
Or not voting at all. And I can tell you personally, I really struggled with who to vote for as somebody who has voted for Labour in the past, but didn't like a lot of their manifesto, didn't like what, I somewhat knew that Starmer wouldn't follow through on some of these actions. I didn't like a lot of his statements surrounding trans people. I know there'll be a lot of people listening to this who don't agree with that. That's my viewpoint. But the point is, I don't think they went in with enough team spirit, I'll say, since it's Christmas.
I think the bizarre thing is they are operating as if they're still in opposition. They're still squabbling about policy, about decide what should be in their manifesto. They were elected 6 months ago, but they're still wondering about what should be in their manifesto. And you've got that. The other thing is, everybody else in the country knew they were going to be the government 2 years before it happened.
Yeah.
And yet the only people who don't seem to have realised are the people who are in government. And it's this complete lack of preparation. I mean, to give Sue Gray a peerage for a complete lack of preparation for the election.
I have to go to a break. We'll come back to Sue Gray and the peerages and whether they are the right decision or not after this break. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
And if you watch the abysmal proceedings by the Public Accounts Committee yesterday, you saw all these people who've wasted not the figure you did, but nearer 100 billion, stand there having lied to successive Public Accounts Committees over the years and saying, oh, we're going to reset it, and from now on, we who have messed it up are going to make it all right again. I mean, I've never seen anything more ridiculous in my life.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 8:45, Saturday, December the 21st. I'm very happy I've just been given a custard cream. The festive season must be upon us. I'm in the middle of head-to-head with Rory Boyle and Gawain Taylor. Let's just talk about the peerages list, shall we? So Keir Starmer giving peerages out to loads of people. Sue Gray, one of them political appointments they've shoved up there because of, obviously, she was going to be head of nations and regions or whatever, and then obviously decided she didn't want to have that. He's given these peerages to the former heads of the Trades Union Congress. Even the union leader who managed to lead the teachers' strike last year, disrupting the country. Also, Carwyn Jones, the former First Minister of Wales, going into the House of Lords. Essentially, he's shoving them all in there to change the arithmetic. So it goes from 185 Labour peers up to 211, and that will bring them sort of more into parity with the Conservative Party. It's anachronistic, it's out of date. It can't be right you reward people by shoving them in the upper house.
Listen, I'm sure we've all heard of 50 Shades of Grey. We had Sue Gray throwing shade earlier this year and a lot of infighting, right?
You've thought about that.
I've thought about it. It was in all the headlines. You know, we all read about this alleged infighting. Now she seems to have been shoved here. Listen, if you get £361 a day, allegedly in expenses, and then you've got a subsidised canteen, can I get a job there?
Well, we were talking about that. Apparently, the beef, the fillet of beef with triple cut fries was £5.
Oh, not bad at work if you can find it,
really,
right?
really, but surely, is it time to get rid of the House of Lords?
Yeah, I think it might be. I mean, what I personally would prefer is an elected upper cabinet. I think that might be an...
Upper cabinet?
Yeah, I think that might be an easier way to do things.
What's an upper cabinet?
Oh, I got that wrong. Sorry, upper chamber?
Upper chamber.
Sorry, I prefer an elected upper chamber. I don't know if it's time to scrap the House of Lords completely. I don't like this cronyism, though, and I don't like the idea of Sue Gray just being placed there because it's now convenient. Again, that's what it feels like. It feels like not knowing what you're doing or giving someone something they want because her initial role didn't go the way they'd planned.
Yeah, I mean...
I don't know.
Well, hang on a minute. Thangam Debonair shoved in their former MP. We've also got Luciana
blind that
Berger.
it wouldn't happen.
Sorry?
Having sworn blind that it wasn't going to happen. Look, we could go unicameral, but I think that's a bad idea. I think you do need a revising house. But you've got to decide, before you decide the makeup of the upper house, you've got to decide what you want that upper house to do. Now, do you want it to challenge the lower house? In which case, you have it elected. If you want it to be a revising chamber, then you do need you need to find some way of getting people in there who are the great and the good, the ones who actually are able to make the decisions.
Don't we need to have a cap?
I like the bishops in there, but they're going to be Labour voters, mostly.
But also, hang on a minute, just in terms of the size of this second chamber now, it's enormous, and you've got whatever, you know...
Yes, it's enormous, but you have people, for example, say you're having a debate about rent... Or farming.
Yes.
Now, quite a few of the old-fashioned hereditaries are landowners. They have to stand up and talk. Most times, the hereditaries don't turn up for that many things, but when they're experts, they come in. Yeah. You don't have all X-hundred in every debate. You have the ones who have expertise, and that's a good thing.
Who would you put in the upper chamber?
Oh, you really put me on the spot there, but what I was just going to say, sorry, to come back to that was... Doesn't everybody do this, though, what Starmer's doing? What I'm saying is, if Kemi was in power right now, let's say...
Of course they do. But that doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't make it right at all, but I'm just saying that's why I think we need reform.
Or we're just more honest about it and don't pretend that it's just merit. We accept that it is a debating chamber.
Oh, I don't know, it'll be hard to get politicians to be honest about something like that.
In my romantic sense, I'd get rid of all the lifers. And if you really... and I'd just bring back the hereditaries. And
you would bring back the hereditaries?
Yes, absolutely, because they had a vested interest in the country. But if you really think somebody has produced something of value, has achieved, if they are the David Attenboroughs of this world, give them a hereditary peerage. They still do it in Belgium, they still do in other countries.
And that's the really interesting point. If you've got people who are experts in their field, then I would think that is quite a good system.
Yeah, I think that does make sense.
And as I say, this vast number of peers, they don't turn up to most debates. They only turn up to debates where they're experts.
Just very quickly, I want to talk about this. Prison governors, this is a story in the Telegraph today, have spurned the formality of being addressed as Sir, Miss or Ma'am. They've told inmates they can call them by their first names.
They can't call them offenders either.
So, no, you can't call them offenders. They are residents.
They wouldn't be there if they weren't offenders. It's ridiculous.
Quiet. Off your soapbox. So there is no Ministry of Justice guidance on how governors should be addressed. But many of the governors are now adopting this informal approach. Even if the traditional prisons stick with the convention, the staff address each other by their surnames. The governor is known as the governor. I'm sorry, you're a prisoner. Why are you calling a governor by your... Hi, Dave.
Is it Dave? Oh, well, listen, I don't like this either.
You don't like it?
No, I don't like it. I want there to be more formality. Look, you're in prison, you've committed a crime that comes with a lot of emotional trauma, I imagine, but at the end of the day, there's a reason that you're there, and if you had a fair trial and you've been convicted, which we have to believe in that, right? Or where do we stand? I like this formality, and I don't like the casualness of, yes, Dave, as you eloquently put it.
I feel the same way about primary schools, by the way.
I would agree.
Yeah, that's happening in a lot of schools now.
None of this. You are not... The teacher or the prison officer or the governor is not their friend.
It seems to me...
He is their governor. The governor or she is their governor.
We are seeing the parallels in almost every aspect of life.
It's the tweetification, he says, wearing a Christmas jumper of society.
Why have we stopped revering people? You know what?
Authority matters.
Let me tell you one thing that I absolutely hate is when nurses and doctors call an older person by their first name. Hi, Elsie, how are you?
They haven't given permission.
Not. It's Mrs. Smith.
Until such time as Mrs. Smith says, oh, you can call me Elsie, dear. And it is up to me to decide. But when it comes to positions like this, I think it is... Can you imagine the colonel of the regiment saying, oh, you can call me Pete to the squaddies? No, because you have to have levels of authority. You have to have respect.
Isn't this where we have societal breakdown? There is no kind of... There isn't the respect that we want.
It's also parents want to bring their children's mates. No, you're their parents.
That's a very good point. Quiet for the moment.
I don't know about societal breakdown. I think we have other issues to worry about when it comes to societal breakdown.
It's part of it.
But I think perhaps lack of respect, yes. I'll give a point on that. When it comes to the older people, let's say in a hospital or you're meeting an older person in general, I wouldn't walk up to them and say, hi, Nancy, I'm always going to call her Mrs. Smith.
Good.
And then see where she wants to go from there.
It's her choice.
I don't know about a 16-year-old now, though. I think everything has become more casual. I think social media has slightly broken down barriers of accessing other generations and how you interact with people. Social media interactions tend to be how a lot of young people meet other people nowadays.
Well, they should learn.
And it's very informal. It's very informal.
What about Gawain's point there about parenting? And I agree with you. I don't think a parent can be their child's best friend.
You don't think a parent can be a child's best friend? Yeah, I don't know if you ever watched Gilmore Girls. Rory and Lorelai's relationship was very problematic.
But what I mean by that is your job is not to be loved. Your job is to give guidance and support and teach
and love.
And love. You love them, but you can't... You don't want them... Your job isn't... If you do the job right, they will love you. And I'm not perfect in by 1,000 ways. But if you do your job, they will love you. But if you try and suck up to them, they won't. They'll hold you in contempt.
Okay.
And it's the same with prisoners.
I want to finish, if I may.
Children prisoners, same
so Debrett's, you know, which is a bastion of manners, and one refers to Debrett's all the time.
Another institution.
I feel Debrett's has gone soft, because according to Debrett's, and this will make people choke on their cornflakes this morning, Christmas dinner party hosts have been told to use their guests' preferred pronouns for the first time by Britain's top etiquette school. This is Debrett's, as I said, the undisputed arbiter of proper conduct in polite society. Apparently, this is to accommodate people who are gender diverse. Apparently, that is what you should be doing, offering an inclusive and sensitive welcome for trans guests. Has Debrett's lost the plot?
No, they've moved at the times, and I really applaud them for doing this. It affects nobody negatively to use a preferred pronoun. It's more inclusive for the trans community or people who don't identify with the gender they were assigned at birth, and I don't see this as a negative at all. In fact, I applaud them, and if we're talking, as we just were, about manners and respect and treating everyone as we'd like to be treated, this is just an example of that. Good for them.
How do you roll it out, though, in a dinner party situation?
Well, I think at dinner parties at Christmas, a lot of us have probably seen those little place cards on the table with everybody's name, so you could put the pronouns along with that if they so wish. Now, for example, say the three of us are at this dinner party, and David, you don't care about this, you don't want them on there. If I saw that it had David as the name, and you to me look like you present as male, I'm just going to
see... What do you mean I look like I present as male?
Well,
I
you
am
do.
male.
Exactly, yes. So I'll be calling you he, him. So I think it's very simple.
Please, you call him David, you don't call him he, him. Basically, have you ever come across O'Sullivan's Law? O'Sullivan's Law basically states that, and this is a case in point with the Debrett's, any organisation that is not right-wing in itself becomes left-wing over time. Look at the National Trust, look at things of this sort. And it looks to me as if Debrett's has been captured by the woke mind virus.
I would agree. And by the way, so here are some other things that you shouldn't do at Christmas, which I think is absolutely right. Debrett's cautions against spirited dinner party conversations.
Rubbish, that's half the fun.
No, it is not. So I will take my family as an example. Do not get involved in politics. Let's not talk about religion. And this is where...
It's Christmas. How can you not talk about religion?
This is where you have to then go...
That's ridiculous.
Apparently the host then has to say, right, I'm hosting this, we're not discussing this.
Well, that's fine.
What would you not discuss at home?
Listen, I just brought my partner to Dublin recently to talk to meet my family, and one of the first things he did when he sat down at the breakfast table was bring up the Crown and the royal family. I was like, you're in a room of Irish people. So he had then 10 people going like this, you know, their mouths going at a mile a minute. But I think that's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, what did he say about the Crown and the royal family?
No, all that happened was we were just talking about television. He said, I really like the Crown. I've begun to view the royal family. I know, but when you're in a room full of Irish, you're going to get some opinions. I think it's a good thing talking about these things.
What would you not talk about? Which has said politics.
I just think when you get to this, it can be anything. Those flashpoints. So then there's a conversation that then evolves, and it just becomes, you know, and someone has to they've had too much sherry, and then they
take the port with you.
And I think you have to say, right, stop, we're moving on.
Yeah, that's fine. But I do think the idea. Also, Debrett's is desperately trying to be relevant. Frankly, it's irrelevant. As an organisation, it's a golden poster. Yeah, precisely.
I will say I was just in Brazil for 3 weeks, and I did a hike one day with a group of young people, and one of that group just wanted to bring up, and I'm a left-winger, she wanted to bring up left-wing topic after left-wing topic after left-wing topic, just to gauge everyone, and it was annoying.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you don't need that.
But there's always an annoying uncle. I suspect I am the annoying uncle. I'm going to find out this week.
Yeah, you will.
So I quite like being the annoying uncle or the slightly eccentric uncle.
Nobody would call you eccentric.
No, they certainly would.
Normality is our own thing. In fact, my pronouns are very normal.
And mine are slay and serve.
and mine is very naughty. Thank you very much indeed. Rory Boyle, podcaster and commentator. Gawain Taylor there, Westminster comms expert. That was today's head-to-head. So there you are. That was today's head-to-head. Lots of messages coming in. Ian Stevens, rollicking show, David. Thank you very much.
Rollicking.
That's another great word, rollicking.
Word.
We don't use that enough. Moron, we decided we should use more.
Wazzock.
Wazzock is another good one. And what nonsense is this about Lady Grey? I need a cup of tea. Blinking hypocrisy. Talk about needing to fix the foundations. This is breaking them so they can be fixed. Ian, thank you for that. Howard, David, great show. The Boyle lad can have a view. have his view. Yes, he did. A prime example, though, of how the Labour supporters have been brainwashed by the Labour government. The country's doomed with Labour in. They're clueless. Everyone jokes now about Mad Ed, but he has to be stopped now. Also, I'm asking this morning, how long do you think Starmer can hang on? There's a lot of talk from senior politicians about Starmer actually not surviving. Thinking about a new leader for Labour, trying to think who has a brain cell, let alone leadership quality and experience. No, I'm sorry. No, I have absolutely no idea. Happy Christmas, special weekend, friend. Love to keep your fire warm whilst you're working. Well, there we are, Stephanie. That's a bit racy for this time. Yes, I know. I know. It's warm. Stephanie, thank you ever so much for that. And very quickly, this one says, tell the MSN on your panel I am a waspie. I did not know about the changes to my start pension. It is my money I've worked damn hard for. The government has stolen it from me. Keep all of those messages coming in, please. Time for a break. After the break, Davis Fang will be with me, tech presenter, to talk us through our Tech Rundown Christmas special. Maybe there's a gift there that you haven't thought about, and maybe you're panicking because we haven't got long to go until the big day. That's all still to come after this break. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. Just after 9 o'clock on Saturday, December the 21st. It's Weekend Breakfast. I'm all toasty by the fire. As you can see, I've got my Christmas tree up, feeling very festive indeed. I hope you're well, wherever you are in this great country. Good news for you this morning. It's Don't Make Your Bed Day. There you go. Don't Make Your Bed Day. The day was originally requested by a 5th grader in New Jersey. She actually wrote to Congress and said, look, I want to have a day off making my bed. And the holiday encourages you to turn your back on those repetitive tasks and to feel a little bit rebellious.
Show me the way to go home. I'm tired and
I had a little... Anyway, we'll carry on. It's the winter solstice today. It's an astronomical phenomenon that sees the Northern Hemisphere have its longest night and its shortest day of the year. Thank goodness. Yeah. Anne, there are just 4 sleeps to go until Christmas. That means there are 3 shopping days left to go. If you are panicking, panic.
Have you been a good boy this year?
No. Let's go move on to today's fascinating facts.
Today's fascinating facts.
Today's fascinating facts. On this day, in 1804, the birth of Benjamin Disraeli, the first Earl of Beaconsfield and British Prime Minister. He was Conservative Prime Minister in 1868. He was defeated at the next election. He then was Prime Minister again in 1874, but with a substantial majority. On this day in 1846, Robert Liston, Scottish surgeon, used anaesthetic or ether for the first time in a British operation. This was at University College Hospital in London. He performed an amputation of a leg. He was actually known as the fastest knife in the West End, and that was because time was crucial, because it reduced pain, and rather more crucially, it meant you were more likely to survive. Also, on this date in 2013, this is absolutely terrifying, a poll showed that 1 in 10 people aged 25 to 34 in Britain thought that Father Christmas was mentioned in the biblical account of the birth of Jesus. Those are today's fascinating facts.
Welcome to the show where the spirit's alive. David, Paul and friends, the joy in our lives. Your spunky Christmas breakfast, our favourite time of year.
You should see what I can see, which is a bunch of very strange people who need medicating next door, with hats and festive adornments. Just before we go and move on to Tech Rundown, let's talk to Jay, who is calling from Essex. Good morning, Jay.
Oh, morning, David.
Hello, how are you?
Before I start my rant, happy Christmas.
Yes, happy Christmas to you as well. Aren't you prepared?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Oh, well done. That's...
Oh, it comes around every year, doesn't it? No,
well, apparently so. Apparently so, but it still manages to keep, catch people off guard, doesn't it? Now, I assume you're not calling to talk about Christmas.
No, I'm talking about the WASPy and the compensation. I watched that Rachel Reeves video last night, well, the early hours of this morning, actually.
Which one was that? Where she's campaigning with her mother?
Well, yeah, when she says about it, and she actually states on there that they got a concession so that it would only be put back for 18 months.
Yeah.
Well, I had to wait till I was 66, so I waited the full 6 years. So I don't understand why. She had that video made in 2016, which is the year I should have retired.
So where do you stand on this? Because I just think this is duplicitous, where you are campaigning, Rachel Reeves, many others, who are campaigning alongside their relatives for the WASPy women. Then when you're in government, you change your view.
Yeah, they're just lying through their teeth. They lied through everything just to get in. And he actually stated in the Commons this week that 90% of people, according to that independent review, knew about it.
Yes, he did.
Well, where do they get that figure from? Because according to the WASPy women, that he's quoting the wrong figure. So once again, he's lying to Parliament.
But also, just in terms of the look, you're right. He said 90% of affected women knew about the changes. There's no need to compensate them, and that 10.5 billion. But it seems to me that this is unfair, actually, and also it shows your priorities are wrong, because they can find money for things they want, like union pay rises.
It's just disgusting. Everything the bloke has touched has gone wrong. He's made the wrong call on every single thing. Totally useless. He's not listening. He's not going to listen. I think that's what we're all getting to understand. He's completely, like he said yesterday, wouldn't change anything.
I know, it's extraordinary.
I'm afraid that sort of attitude... I'll give him 6 months at the...
Oh, that was my next question. He says he wouldn't change anything. Do you think the country would want to change things and not vote for Labour?
God, yes. And the fact that he's putting back the local elections is disgusting. I mean, he's supposed to be a human rights lawyer, democracy, is all connected to everything. He don't seem to know what he is at all.
Do you think he should spend more time in the country?
I'd like to sit and talk to him.
I'm sure you would. What would you say if you met Starmer? What would you say? What would be your first sentence?
The first sentence would be, you campaign to be elected on truth, honesty and integrity. Why aren't you doing that?
Great first line. Jay, thanks ever so much. Wishing you a very happy Christmas. Right, it's time for Tech Rundown.
Tech Rundown.
Davis fan, good morning.
Merry Christmas, David.
Merry Christmas to you. Last day for you. You're off to stuff your face.
Can't wait for that.
Yes. And that's a Christmas jumper, is it?
Apparently it is. That's what it said on the website.
Oh, well done. So this is a new purchase.
It definitely is.
And are you ready for Christmas?
I think so. It's my first Christmas here in the UK, so very excited. I don't think it's snowing, unfortunately.
No.
But, you know, can't win at all.
But at least it's cold, I suppose.
It's freezing.
Because for you at home, Australia, it would be warm.
Yeah, I'm not used to a 0 degree Christmas.
No, it's absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
But that's why we've got a fire, so keep you warm.
Precisely.
Yes. OK, so lots and lots of stories this morning. Now, you'll have to explain this. So the headline here is ChatGPT is coming to phones, not your smartphone, but your landline. What on earth?
Yeah, this is sort of crazy. So we've talked about AI, we've talked about ChatGPT a lot this year.
Have.
And this has mostly, been targeted at people with smartphones, with desktop computers, who are quite literate in technology. However, AI, it can be utilised by anyone. How do we make this accessible for older people? Well, ChatGPT had a brilliant idea to bring ChatGPT to a landline.
Right.
So this is out in America at the moment, and all you have to do is call 1-800-ChatGPT, and you get access to what they called advanced voice mode, and that's basically the ChatGPT voice assistant. And then you can ask it questions like, how tall is the Eiffel Tower? You can ask it to translate messages. You can ask it, just to keep you company. Unfortunately, it's only 15 minutes. You only get 15 minutes free a month at the moment. And so if you can't access ChatGPT on your phone, older people can do this. Now, does this appeal to you, David?
No, not in the slightest. I quite like that one. I was just reading there, my girlfriend's coming to dinner, what should I cook?
Yes.
I get that.
And you can call ChatGPT now, so you can sort of see the appeal. It's sort of, they're trying to get it to a wider audience, trying to make it more accessible. I don't know. What sort of gifts I can get for Mr. David Bull on the TV.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure I can come up with some great ones.
I hope you've bought it by now.
We'll see.
we will see. OK, I'm not sure about the adoption of that, because if they who are they targeting? Older people?
So they say they want consistent access to high-speed data for older people. For those new to AI, this is an easy, convenient way to do that through familiar channels.
Although I know a lot of older people with smartphones now.
Yeah, a lot of people still have dumb phones, unfortunately. But I don't know if that sort of demographic would want to talk to a robot, essentially.
No, I would agree with that. It's something impersonal. But I quite like the idea that... And is there a human voice on the end of that?
It does sound human, but of course it's not actually human.
So you could, if you were lonely, you could ring it and say you're lonely?
Yes, but it's only 15 minutes, and then you have to pay.
And then you have to pay, and then you rack up a huge bill. OK, that's quite interesting. Let's move on and talk about this. North Korea hackers stole 1.3 billion of crypto this year.
Yes, it's completely insane. So North Korea hackers stole £1 billion worth of cryptocurrency this year, and this is 61% of all cryptocurrency stolen for the entire year. So they are very much the leaders in this regard. And that's sort of a crazy figure, because if we put it into perspective, that 5% of their entire GDP is made up of stolen cryptocurrencies. And that's also double of last year's
haul. So could you just explain to people like me? So cryptocurrency is a digital currency. So how, you log in and you steal it?
When you own cryptocurrency, you go through an exchange. It's a bit like a bank. So, your bank holds real money, whereas your crypto exchange holds your fake virtual cryptocurrency money. And then you access it through something called a private key, which is a chain of randomly generated numbers and letters. Okay. You have to keep that key very safe. But unfortunately, a lot of these exchanges are are not very secure. For example, £237 million was stolen this year from DMM, which is a Japanese crypto exchange, and then £185 million stolen from an Indian one called Wazir X. So there's varying levels of security, and North Korea has been targeting the less secure ones, and that's because, you know, they've got a few sanctions against them. They're finding it difficult to raise money for their economy, and they're sort of resorting to stealing from crypto exchanges.
It's absolutely mad, isn't it? Let's move on and talk about the FAA banning drones from flying over critical New Jersey infrastructure. This is, so I think we touched on this, but this is about unidentified drones, isn't it?
Yeah, so recently there's been numerous sightings of unidentified objects. They're probably drones over critical areas in New Jersey. And in response to this, the FAA have implemented drone bans across these areas just to, you know, so we could hopefully reduce the occurrences of these. But the thing is, like, drone bans, or restrictions rather, are not really that rare. For example, if you want to fly a drone, if you receive a drone for Christmas, let's say, and you want to fly one, there's tons of restrictions here in the UK. For example,
do people know that?
I'm not sure if they do. For example, you know, I might gift you a drone and you would assume that you could just fly it anywhere, but you really can't. For example, you have to keep it under 120 meters in height. If the drone is over 250 grams in weight, you can't fly to people closer than 50 meters. You can't fly within 50 meters of cars and trains and stuff like that. You also need to get a license if you want to fly in sort of other areas. And then, however, if it's under 250 grams, you can fly closer. So, like, there's tons and tons of restrictions. And so this particular ban until January the 17th for 22 areas in New Jersey really doesn't sound that strange, unless if you put it into context of, you know, the mysterious UFO sightings.
Yes, maybe in that context. I know you'll be very excited about this. What is a rollable laptop and when is it coming?
Yeah, so last year, Lenovo at CES, which is sort of a consumer electronics show.
CES,
yes, you have. It's very exciting. It's in Vegas.
It's not very exciting, but yes, okay, it's
For
very
some
exciting.
people, it's very exciting. Yeah. And then they unveil crazy, you know, technology over there. And not all of that makes it to market. And this is why this is sort of insane. So last year, they unveiled this laptop, which is a rollable laptop. So as you can see, with the press of one button, the screen extends with a motor. And because, although it is a flexible display, because it doesn't fold as such, there isn't a crease. And with this technology, you can view multiple programs at the same time on your laptop.
That's quite good.
And it folds up, you know, in a relatively compact shape.
Yeah. Do you like that?
I do sort of like it. The leaker Blast leaked it, and however, it will be very expensive. It probably will be very delicate as well. And currently, Lenovo do have a folding laptop, so like not like a traditional laptop. Rather, there's a screen that folds from a 16-inch to a 12-inch. That costs £3,000. So I think this might actually be even more expensive.
Wow. Well, no one's going to pay for that. Okay, so that's that. I want to get on to some gift ideas for those people who are panicking in just a second. But before we do that, this is an extraordinary story about Google. You know those cars, the Google, whatever it's called, Street View. But it solved a murder case.
Yeah, so Google Street View is quite a useful tool if you aren't familiar. Basically, you can drop your location on Google Maps and get a 360 view. However, as you can see, this is an image taken in Teuco, Spain. It's a very small town. In the 2004 census, just 109 people. And a Google Street View car hadn't actually visited this town in 15 years. And yet, it's managed to solve a murder. So in October 2023, a man, a 33-year-old Cuban national, was reported missing, and there hasn't really been much movement in the case for almost a year. However, just in November this year, a woman who was his ex-partner was arrested, and that's because of this evidence that was found on Google Maps. And so 2 months ago, this image was taken, and it shows a man disposing a body within the boot of this Rover 800 car, and it's sort of become a little bit of an internet sensation because a car hasn't visited this area in 15 years, and somehow it helps, you know, solve a murder case. It is absolutely insane.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, and the
chances of that must be infinitesimal.
Yeah, because they probably decided to go to this town because nothing ever happens there. There's just 100 people.
There's a murder.
And then, yeah, it's all, you know, captured for the world to see.
That's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. Can we move on to some gifts? Or maybe I need to go to a break. Do I need to go to a break? Let's do that after the break, I think, otherwise I shall get into terrible trouble. You've got some good gift ideas, haven't you, for those people who are panicking? Right, good. That includes me. Don't go anywhere. This is Weekend Breakfast.
When it comes to family life, you've got to ask, is it for the security of the nation and in the public interest? Well, surely having someone, as we've just seen, who controls 90% of the UK's heroin market is a threat to the country.
You would think.
You would think. So a guy that simply attacked someone with whatever it was at B&Q, I don't think will even reach, you know, the idea that the court will say or will even consider it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, this is Talk. Davis Fang joins me for Tech Rundown. Did you buy that jumper? Because
Yes,
I
I
just suddenly
did.
realised there's branding all over it.
I was very excited about it. There was a massive sale. I was like, I couldn't resist.
Right, very
Yeah.
good. So it says Red Bull and you've got flags there.
Yeah, it's the one drink I love.
And what are those little monsters?
No idea, actually. I haven't had a close look.
Oh, it looks like an Atari game.
Yeah, probably that.
Do you remember it? You're too young to know what an Atari is.
It's your generation.
It is my generation, I'm afraid. Okay, so let's talk about gift ideas because there isn't very long to go.
There isn't.
What have you got?
Okay, so these are all gifts that you can either go into a store physically to buy, or you can get with one-day delivery on Amazon.
Excellent.
And the first one I would like to talk about, I've been using it for a couple of weeks, and it's a little bit insane. It's a very unique gift, and it is a Clicks keyboard for your iPhone. Basically, it turns your iPhone into a BlackBerry. And for those people who are obsessed with a physical keyboard,
Can
like
you just
myself,
describe that to people who are
so
listening?
basically, it is a iPhone case, but on the very bottom of it, you've got a keyboard that's a little bit like a BlackBerry's. So a lot of people who are obsessed with these things like me might have noticed that you can't really buy a phone with a physical keyboard anymore.
Yes.
And if you want to buy one of the last of the BlackBerries, which are barely usable now, they're over £400 for a new one on eBay.
Wow.
So basically, this is for those keyboard enthusiasts who, you know, who maybe aren't completely into their touchscreen phones, and you can currently buy it in Selfridges, and it's available for £110. So it's a little bit expensive for a phone case, but it's compatible with the iPhone 14 to 16.
Why would you need that?
The thing is, I just love a tactile experience. A touchscreen phone just doesn't really do it for me. People are obsessed with their, you know, with the mechanical keyboards on their laptops and such, and I just think, why don't we have the equivalent on a phone?
Okay.
And this is that.
So it strikes me that you're not very large in stature. How do you get that thing in your pocket?
Yeah, the downside with this is that it is absolutely massive. It doesn't fit in my pocket, but I do cope somehow.
Okay. So that's how much? 110 quid.
£110 it starts at.
Okay, actually, I mean, it's a nice novel gift. That.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, it is very different. Okay, fine. Next.
The next one might be a little bit more useful. So this is called the Claude Note AI, and basically, do you love taking notes of your meetings? Is that
I do it all the time, and I use notes.
Oh, so you like taking notes?
I do.
Well, imagine a world where you don't have to take notes.
Oh.
So I've been using this over the past year, and I have to be honest, this is one of my favourite affordable-ish gadgets. It's currently £149 on Amazon, and basically it looks like a credit card. It's almost as thin as a credit card.
Yes.
But if you press this button over here, it will start recording your conversation or meeting, and then it will use ChatGPT on your phone to summarise what it heard. So I was recording actually quite secretly your fascinating facts earlier, and it sort of like summarised it all into some lovely notes that we can check later. It did get most of it right, I believe, and it even adds action items on the end. So like we have to ensure that all our holiday decorations are in place and to finalise a Christmas shopping list.
And that's because I said 3 days to go until Christmas.
Precisely. So I think it's very smart. 30 hours of battery life, I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Are there privacy concerns that you rock up with that and record someone?
The thing is, I think everyone ought to ask for permission before recording, but it's no different to recording on your phone or even with a traditional voice recorder.
True. Now, I know you like your glasses that you record everyone with, which is deeply creepy. Is that what we're going to do now?
Yes, let's do this one. So this is the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. I've been talking about this all year. Basically that smart glasses are the next big thing. This is currently the market leader, and it's £299 from Ray-Ban stores. And basically it looks like a pair of normal sunglasses.
Yes.
However, if I was to press this button over here, it starts recording. So I'm currently recording our conversation, and you can see there's a little light over here, I think, and then that shows the world that we're recording. It's also got earphones, so you don't need to wear your AirPods. It's basically got speakers in the arms.
Right.
And also you've got access to Meta's AI. I think like...
So how does that work?
So you can tap on the side and you can ask it like, hey Meta, tell me the time. Hey Meta, what are some great Christmas gifts? Stuff like that. I think it's a very subtle thing.
You love that.
I adore this. And you can also get prescriptions as well if you wear glasses normally. I think it's
How much are
brilliant.
they? Even more?
It's even more.
Okay. So we happened to be going somewhere and you were recording where we were going.
Yes.
Is that a bit strange?
It might be a little bit strange to some, but, you know, everyone can see that you're recording due to the light, and then I'm sure that you'd be as nice to tell other people that you are recording. I think it's no different to recording on a, on a GoPro or on your phone's camera even.
Interesting.
So
how much was that again?
£299.
£299. Let's. You've now got something for those people who are desperate for a speaker.
Yes, so if you want something a little bit more affordable, this is the best affordable speaker that I've tried all year. This is the Ultimate Ears Mini Roll. You can get it for around £50 at John Lewis or
50.
Amazon. Yeah, so it's relatively affordable. It's got 12 hours of battery life. But what I really like with this particular model is that it's completely waterproof. So you can pop it in your pool. If you've got a pool, probably not the best time of year for that. But you can wash it under the tap if you really want. You can drop it at 1.2 metres and it won't break. It's got really good sound quality, and you can also pair them together. So if your friends all have the same speaker, you can sort of like have a speaker party. And
we can have a party.
And I think as well, it's got a very nice strap on the back, so you can strap it to almost anything like my hand. So
why would you walk around with a speaker attached to your hand?
I've seen advertising material where they've put it on people's bags or even drink bottles, so I think it could be quite snazzy for that.
Okay, all right. I quite like that. I quite like that. And then...
Do you have time for one more?
Yes, one more.
All right, let's just talk about AirTags. So I think that this is probably the most, one of the most gifted items at the moment. £28 for 2 of them from Apple. And basically, you can pop these anywhere and it can track the location of your items, like your wallet or your luggage. And this is relevant because at the moment, there's a new feature where you can share the location. So if you lose your luggage and there's an AirTag in it, you can actually share the details with the airline, like British Airways, United, Delta, whatever, and they will help you track your luggage as well.
So that's brilliant. And then how do you... So that obviously is compatible only with an iPhone, is it?
It's compatible with Apple devices.
Right, Apple devices.
Yeah.
So do you then have to assign that a name or whatever, and can you see it on a map?
So yes, you can go into your Find My app on your phone, and then you can see on a map where it is, and you can share it with other people.
I like that one. So that's very good. And that's how much?
That's £28 for a set of 2 from Apple.
It's very good, Davis. Thank you very much. I wish you a very happy Christmas. Enjoy your first Christmas in the United Kingdom. I'm sure it will be everything that you hope it is. So, and I hope Santa is good to you.
Thank you.
That was Davis Fang and, of course, Tech Rundown.
Tech Rundown.
Very good, very good. Doug, good morning to you. Hi, David. So a pensioner has to fill in a form with 200-plus questions with no help from the government. Yet an illegal immigrant who hasn't contributed will get a translator and all the assistance they want to claim all the benefits they can get. What has happened to this country? It's a very good sentiment and one which I think many people share. Sarah in Devon, good morning to you. Hello, David. Merry Christmas. Thank you, and to you. My experience with technology and medical care is that reliance on checklists has replaced clinical judgment. This has led to incorrect diagnosis and treatments, which are costly to the NHS. It's also led to increased duration of suffering, which also negatively affects health. Anthony in Bristol, good morning. Hi, David, great show. Thank you very much. Regarding the WASPy women, I don't agree they should receive compensation, as they were told about this in the 90s. There were a small group of women who thought they would retire at 65. This was changed with very short notice to 66. But this was also done to men. I do think that Labour were only supporting WASPy women for votes. Well, that's not fair, is it? And again, it's about changing their stance. I think it's about standing up for your principles, isn't it, Anthony? That worries me. Steve, just one more. Steve Smedley, Starmer comes across as a pathological liar with a reality avoidance disorder, and this is leading a political death cult. The next election, hopefully soon, will see a huge rise in the number of reform and Muslim issue MPs. Keep all of those messages coming in, please. How long can Starmer hang on for? That's what I'm asking. 0344 499 1000. Time for a break. After the break, Mr. Steve Denyer will be joining me for all the latest showbiz news with Denyer's Delights.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 9:34, Saturday, December the 21st. Lots of messages coming in. Susan, this is about the waspy women. David, I didn't get my pension for 6 and a bit years. I was in Italy and I requested my pension forecast. They lost all my pension. And they had to find it. It took them 3 years. They did not tell me I could have my pension. This was up until 2010. I didn't get my full pension as they didn't find all of it. Mark Curtin, well noticed. Hi, David. I think you might have upset Gawain. It's Towler, not Taylor. I know. I'm sorry. It's very early. It's been a long day. Great show as always. Have a great Christmas. Thank you to you. Happy Christmas to you as well. Lots more coming in. Also, I'm asking, how long has Keir Starmer got? How long can he hang on? The number 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can message us on X as well at talkTV. But now it's time for Daniel's Delights.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I thought we got a new photo of you.
I sent it through.
No, I know. Oh, I see. We haven't actually made it. The elves are making
Oh,
that.
I see,
So
okay.
they've taken the photo and the little elves haven't actually put it together, which is why I then got caught out.
It will be a nice treat for the new year.
It will be a lovely
So
treat.
I've made an effort for you.
Yes, you look lovely.
Do you like this?
Yes, I do.
Can I ask
and
you
what's
a
your jumper
question?
say? Christmas Quacker?
Yeah, Christmas
Very
Quacker.
good.
Can I ask a question? Because
Yes.
every single person listening and watching will have an answer to this. What is, listen to this,
I hate these.
what is the greatest Christmas film of all time? We're going to come back to this in a bit, because we've been doing it all this week on Virgin Radio. But I just want to find out, you know, with the people watching and listening to Talk, what is the greatest Christmas movie ever? If you want to message in right now, we can go through a few of those.
0344 499 1000. What is the greatest Christmas movie? Are you going to tell us what yours is?
Yes, but we get on to that.
we do.
We get on to that. We get on to that.
Okay.
It's lovely to see you. I just wanted to touch on, you know, when we look back on this year, some shocking events. The cause of Michael Mosley's death has been announced, and basically it's an open conclusion. It's unknown. I only mention this because just a week ago I was on an aeroplane and people were watching some of his shows. They're so well received. People watch his shows all over the world.
Yeah,
you know.
just remind us of the circumstances, if you can.
So he went, I mean, it's such a tragic situation. He went on holiday with his wife in June. Do you remember in Greece it was sweltering? I mean, it was like 37, 38 degrees. And he went for a walk. And apparently he
Wasn't it at the peak of the day, though?
It was, yes. He left his mobile phone at home because he didn't want to get it wet because he was going along the kind of coastline. And then we don't know what happened. He was found 4 days later.
Odd anyway in itself, not taking your phone, because surely if you run into trouble, you'd want to ring.
Of course.
But anyway.
Of course. I mean, it's just awful. It is awful. Next thing, his 4 kids came over and they tried to search for him. They couldn't find him. And then they found him kind of in the openings of a cave. But awful. I mean, he left £1.7 million to his family. I know that money doesn't matter in this kind of situation, but I just wanted to update you with that. We found that out in the last 24 hours. I think, you know, him and Liam Payne, possibly the most shocking passings of the year, really, that sent kind of shockwaves. So I know all of his family, friends and fans will be interested in that one.
I mean, you're right, actually. You see, and that is the reach of television, isn't it? When you make shows like that, which are eminently transferable into any continent, any nation. Yeah. And then you realise the power of television, actually, and the way that it has to.
And he was such a great broadcaster, because I think everyone kind of warmed to him and you trusted him. He was a bit like kind of the nation's father, in a way. He was an interesting broadcaster.
He was very good, actually, at explaining complex things to the average public member, and that is a rare gift, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about Barbara Broccoli, shall we?
Yes. So this is the new Bond film. Yes. Which apparently production. I mean, we don't even know who the new Bond is. That's the first problem. There's a few names about banded around. Have
they started filming then?
Well, so there's a standoff going on at the moment. So it's between Barbara Broccoli and Amazon. Do you remember Amazon bought the rights to Bond? This happened back in 2022, so a couple of years ago. Right. And a huge amount, like millions and millions and millions. Barbara Broccoli has called Amazon idiots. In fact, there was another word before idiots, which I won't repeat. So they've just kind of shut it down, and they're at loggerheads at the moment.
So just remind us, so Amazon, what did Amazon buy exactly?
So they bought the production, you know, the production company that have always produced and directed the Bond movies.
Yes.
They paid for it. So they're now in charge of the production of the release of this new Bond movie. We don't know too much about this because, as I say, there's still casting and what have you, but something's gone on behind the scenes and everything's been halted and shut down. So right here, right now, they're not making a new Bond movie. But as I say, we don't even know who the new Bond is going to be. I mean, it's 5 years since the last Bond, Daniel Craig.
Is it really?
No Time to Die, I think it was called.
5 years?
5 years since that film was made. And do you remember it was kind of delayed because of lockdown and what have you, and it came out. So really interesting stuff. Of course, Daniel Craig's in different films now. He's moved on. Josh O'Connor's being rumoured. Now, he played Prince Charles in The Crown. He's one of the names, along with Aaron Tyler Johnson as well. So there's a few names in the making for this new Bond.
So what sort of age would Bond be then? So a younger Bond, I assume?
Yeah, I suppose it depends which... I mean, I always think Roger Moore
so do
was
I.
the greatest Bond.
So do I. But lots of people think he was too cheesy.
I loved it. I think it's when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And also, I love those 80s Bond themes. You had Gladys Knight, you had Aha, you had, of course, Duran Duran, View to a Kill.
Yes, you're right. That's when they were good.
I thought he was quirky.
But also,
he was fun.
It was beautifully done because he was also very cheesy, but it was also, I suppose, cleverly crafted, so it was available and accessible for all ages.
Yes,
that's what I liked about it.
That's my favourite one.
But then lots of people say Sean Connery was their favourite.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Connery was certainly more serious, more of a kind of man's man Bond.
Yeah.
I think the Roger Moore was kind of camp and unnecessary and fun, and an action man figure, wasn't it?
Was Roger Moore in Octopussy? I think he was. I think he was, actually. I can't really remember. Yes, he was on me.
He was, okay.
Yeah.
I always remember the one with Grace Jones.
View to a Kill.
Yes, and San Francisco, and I love that film so much.
So you
always kind of remember the one that you the one that you first loved when you were growing up.
Yeah, and also for me, it's synonymous with Christmas because that's what you would do, and so you would sit down and then you'd watch the Bond film.
There was always a Bond film, wasn't there?
There was always a Bond film.
This year there isn't. We'll get on to Christmas.
So she's quite interesting, Barbara Broccoli. Of course, she was the daughter of Cubby Broccoli, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I think she's older than me, so she's got to be 10 years older, I reckon, something like that.
And she always has had the final say when it comes to Bond. They even with the Bond themes, they even listen to them, and it's their approval, so they can kind of... Was it one of the Aha songs, Wasn't Bond Enough? So they kind of took it, and they got an orchestra to create little bits to make it
that
sound
kind of
like
stuff
a Bond
matters.
theme. Of course it does. It's a franchise.
It is.
It's a huge franchise. Obviously, they made a lot of money when Amazon stepped in to make it, but it would seem there's loads of rumours about Amazon trying to make Bond more woke.
Oh no!
So it's interesting. I wonder if it's whether
does Bond have a pronoun? I bet you Bond has a pronoun.
What would it be?
Oh, I have no idea.
Me. I don't know. But,
I'm being told something that's completely which I cannot repeat.
They're bad.
No,
they're very bad.
I'm being told by a reindeer. He looks like a reindeer. Anyway, Steve, thanks very much. Let's pause for the moment. We'll take a break. After the break, you're going to be telling us what's on TV, what to watch.
And we'll talk about the nation's favourite Christmas movies.
Oh, yes,
as well.
the nation's
Please message in. Let us know.
There you go. Let us know. Steve will be back after this break. This is Weekend Breakfast.
But when it comes to family life, you've got to ask, is it for the security of the nation and in the public interest? Well, surely having someone, as we've just seen, who controls 90% of the UK's heroin market is a threat to the country.
You would
security. You would think. So a guy that simply attacked someone with whatever it was at B&Q, I don't think will even reach, you know, the idea that the court will say or will even consider it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Of course, it wouldn't be Christmas without Steve Denyer.
It's lovely to be here. I feel very comfortable in this hat.
You look great.
Slightly hot, but, you know, it's Christmas.
Well, indeed, and you've got to suffer for your art, haven't you?
Yes, exactly.
Lots of messages coming in about best Christmas movies. We'll save that just
I can't wait. Okay.
the moment. Now, obviously, lots of people have given up, haven't they, for Christmas now, because, of course, it's today's Saturday.
Yes.
So if you want to watch something, what's on?
Well, this isn't necessarily Christmas, but I'm excited about
Are
this.
you?
Because we often talk about these BBC nights, themed nights. They happen most weeks on Saturday night on BBC Two. And tonight is a look at Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox, the Eurythmics. There's some great... I mean, the Eurythmics are an incredible band. Like it or not, those songs have kind of soundtrack different chapters. They only actually had one #1, which was...
wait, Sweet Dreams?
No, There Must Be an Angel.
Oh, I didn't like that
which was, you would have thought Sweet Dreams would have made it. Bonnie Tyler, Holding Out for a Hero, was at #1, and it kept Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams.
That's another great track.
It's another great track.
Yeah.
So tonight you will see all the bits and pieces of them on Top of the Pops and all the different shows. There's Annie Lennox in concert. She is incredible.
Is she?
In fact, she's doing a one-off show in the new year at London's Royal Albert Hall, and it's the most kind of, you know, sought-after ticket. She really is an incredible... you know, they met each other by chance.
Did they?
kind of bumped into each other in a record store in London and got chatting, and next thing, one of the greatest partnerships in... And obviously, you know, they've dated before. When I interviewed Dave Stewart last year, he said the trouble is with lots of Annie's solo songs is they're written about him. So it's very uncomfortable when he hears, you know, No More I Love Yous on the radio and what have you, because it's incredible.
That's great. That's great. So that's Eurythmics at the BBC
tonight at 8:25. It goes all the way through to 2 in the morning. There's lots of stuff. So it's good background stuff.
Now, I haven't been that interested in the chart rundown for many years, but I used to be an avid listener.
Well, we both did, didn't we?
Yes, we taped it, didn't we? And, you know, you'd understand who #1 is. Now, there's been this story running about Starmer, the granny harm, and I just love the ingenuity of this. And
it's a great song.
It's a great song. And then I think it became top of the download chart, doesn't it? But where is it in the Christmas hit list?
Well, unfortunately, it didn't make the top 10. But this is... It's funny you should mention this. I think this week has been as exciting as back in the 80s, because no one knew who was going to get Christmas #1. There was a chance that this song about Starmer could have made it.
Freezing This Christmas.
Freezing This Christmas.
That's right.
So it hasn't even made the top 10. At 10, you've got Pogues, Kirsty MacColl.
I'm surprised by that.
#1 is Wham! Last Christmas. Now, it's kind of fitting because it's 40 years since that record came out. And do you remember the only reason it didn't get to #1 was because it came out the same week as Band Aid.
I was about to say
So
that.
I think it made #2 back in 1984. But they did it last year, so it's become the first Christmas record. This hat's ridiculous.
It's great.
To make it #1 in 2 consecutive years. And when you think about, you know, we learned the sad news that George Michael passed away on Christmas Day, didn't we, back in 20 2016. I always think of George at Christmas because he did come out and he gave so much back to charities around the Christmas period. Lots of documentaries about that. So I'm really happy that Wham have made it to Christmas #1. Still controversy about the BBC not playing.
Oh yes, huge controversy.
The Starmer
song.
I mean, it's not offensive. It hasn't got any sexual swear words, as Simon Bates may have said back in the day.
No, but also, to be fair, they also, if you remember in 2013, Ding Dong the Witch is Dead reached #2. That was a campaign, that was the death of Margaret Thatcher.
Yes.
I think the BBC didn't play that at the time. But you do think, hang on, the BBC has a responsibility to inform, educate and entertain, and if that is the single that is doing well in the download chart, they should blink and well
If the
play it.
people are buying it, they should play it. There was one out a couple of years ago called Boris Johnson is a...
Yes.
Insert the word here. Now, obviously, that wasn't played.
No.
But yeah, with this one, I mean, actually, it's a very good song, and it's clever. And the guy who made it was on with Mike Graham on Morning Glory yesterday morning. He said,
Is this Chris Middleton?
Yeah.
Yes.
Chris was saying, I'm not particularly political, but I wrote it because I'm outraged and I want the nation to get behind it. So it's a great idea.
Now, the BBC says there are no policies preventing it from airing protest or political songs. Excuse me, the BBC said decisions on what should be played were made on an ad hoc basis.
Yeah, and there was another commercial station that said they just referenced the song and didn't play it. So interesting times. I think if we buy it, they should play it.
Well, I totally agree with that. So that's that. That's Wham.
Yes.
Should we do gigs tonight before we come back to that?
There's not that many gigs this weekend because I think most people are, we're kind of driving home for Christmas, seeing our families and stuff. However, Travis are at the OVO Hydro in Glasgow tonight. They're a brilliant band. Travis are the band that did Glastonbury in 1999, and they made it rain. As soon as they started singing, Why Does It Always Rain on Me? It rained.
Did it?
Incredible moment. They are so good. Flowers in the Window, Sing. They've done so many great songs. The new album's really good. So if you're going to go see that gig tonight, and Glasgow, that venue in Glasgow is brilliant.
Okay.
It's such a great venue.
Okay, brilliant. So you posed a question at the beginning of your segment, which was, what is the greatest Christmas movie of all time?
Because everybody has an answer.
Well, I've never really thought about it, but anyway, shall I read some of
Yes,
these?
please.
So Colin Harris says, best Christmas movie ever, It's a Wonderful Life.
Brilliant.
Kathy also says It's a Wonderful Life. Happy Christmas. David, do you mean... This is Neil in Surrey, good morning. David, do you mean best Christmas-themed movie or any movie released at Christmas time? Crikey, this is a...
Well, so it's very much an individual... Because you could say that The Holiday wasn't necessarily a Christmas movie because there was no Santa in it, but I always think it's a holiday movie, isn't it?
It is, and it's brilliant fun. So Neil says his favourite Christmas movie is Doctor Who and the Daleks. But anyway, he remembers seeing that on Christmas Eve. Elf is the best Christmas movie we watch every Christmas Eve. That's Gary Power. Barry says Zulu.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Diane Durham, or in Durham, says Home Alone.
Yes, Home Alone's very popular.
I think that's a very
Home
good
Alone
film.
2, I think, is better than Home Alone. That's the one with Donald Trump in. Do you remember in the lobby of Trump Tower? Home Alone 2.
I need to watch
They really got that right.
Scrooged with Bill Murray. That's Tony in Selby.
That Scrooged is worth watching for the 80s hair. There's so much 80s hair. It's
Were you
brilliant.
in it? A National Lampoon Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, Chevy Chase.
Mark Saunders. Ben McGinn, Die Hard.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It's based at Christmas.
Right.
And, forget about the terrorism. There's lovely Christmas trees in that movie.
What's yours?
So we've been doing... So my personal one, I would go with it's the musical version of Scrooge, and it's Albert Finney. I think it was made in the 70s. It's beautiful.
Is it?
It's the one I watch every single Christmas since I was about 8 years old. As a family, we get together and we watch that film. It's a tradition in our house.
I think probably my answer is going to be The Holiday.
Yeah, I mean, so it's really funny. This year, The Holiday has been picked apart. So many people are saying there's so many errors in that. So apparently when Kate Winslet arrives in LA, she drives the wrong way from LAX to Beverly Hills, completely the wrong road and stuff, and people are... And also the other thing people are saying is how...
What do you mean, that the landscape is wrong?
The landscape is wrong.
Yeah, I know, but that's artistic license.
And she's a junior journalist. How can she afford that cottage? How much was she being paid?
Well, yeah,
but forget that. It's great.
It's lovely. That's really lovely.
With Jay Middlemiss all this week on Virgin Radio Afternoons, we've been doing a poll and everyone's been texting in. We've had even Mike Graham got involved on Virgin Radio with his favourite Christmas movie. The #1 Christmas movie as voted by Virgin Radio. We've got a clip. Is this one, if you're ready.
If they're ready.
Shall I just reveal it?
No. Hang on a minute, I think. Here we go. Oh, yes!
Christmas is the time to be with the people you love. Merry Christmas.
Lovely. True love lasts a lifetime.
All I want for Christmas is you.
Oh, that is the answer.
I mean, Love Actually is.
That is the answer. And I love it. Isn't that where she says, hang on a minute, what, the nativity scene where Emma Thompson says, there was more than one, what was it, octopus at the birth of Christ? Or
That's
whatever it was.
right, yes.
Yeah.
And also that scene with Emma Thompson and she finds out that Alan Rickman's been having an affair. And honestly, your heart breaks. I remember seeing that in the cinema and just overcome with emotion.
I also think the soundtrack's fantastic to that.
Anton Decker in it. And it starts off, doesn't it, with...
Is that the one where he says, yes, Anton Deck?
Yes. And it starts off with people in the arrivals lounge at Heathrow Airport greeting each other. It's a beautiful film, full of love and happiness. And happy Christmas, Dr. David Bull.
Well, and happy Christmas to you, Steve. You're working over the festive
I am.
period.
I'd love to join you on your breakfast show.
Yes, well, so I'll be here, you'll be here. So you'll be here. Dave's tech off. Dave is going to be here. Tom's not here because he never works. He'll be at somewhere else probably. Thanks ever so much, Steve. Really good to see you. That was today's Denya's Delights. Just very quickly, I'm asking how long can Starmer hang on? Paul is on. Excuse me, on the line from Barnsley. Good morning.
Good morning, David. The reason for the call is we talk about people getting pension credit. At the moment, if you're on pension, standard pension, you get £221.20 a week.
Right.
The maximum money you can earn, you can have coming in to claim pension credit is £218 a week.
Right.
Why aren't people talking about this?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Hundreds of thousands of people cannot get pension credit because they get £4 too much income.
Oh, Christ. So, and also, can I just broaden that out in terms of Starmer and not backing down and this talk about how long can he hang on? Has he betrayed the nation?
Yes, absolutely. And he's particularly betrayed pensioners and farmers as well. But to say to people, claim pension credit, knowing full well that if you have £221.20 coming in, you cannot claim it.
And they
Never
know
mind
this.
The 220 questions.
Do you think they realise that and they know it, and they're just, or are they just being stupid?
Probably most of them, because they're on £90,000 a year, have not got a clue.
Yeah, I agree.
No one has ever asked the question, but I do believe, quite honestly, that rate of claiming was set low so that people could not claim it.
I mean, it's a brilliant point, Paul. Thank you for that. Let me wish you a happy Christmas as well. Thanks for that, and thank you very much for all your calls this morning. They've been absolutely first rate, as my grandfather would say. Talking of first rate, Peter Cardwell is here. Good morning.
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Where's your Christmas jumper?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow?
Tomorrow,
Are you really going to wear something?
Something. Perhaps a little hat.
A little hat.
Perhaps a little hat.
A little elf hat.
Yes, indeed. Very sad news from Germany in that the death toll has gone up to 4 in Magdeburg. We know that a small child is involved. We'll be talking about what has happened and also what it all means. There's a lot of confusing messages coming out, who did it, why he did it.
Yep.
It's very, very interesting. We'll be talking to Andy Williams and Claire Muldoon as well about a story that really concerns me. The judge